Okay. Good evening. I hereby call this meeting of the Brockton Finance Committee to order. It is Monday, October 16th. The quorum is present. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk.
Item number 1, we have the acceptance of the minutes of the October 2, 2023 Finance Committee meeting.
Accepted and placed on file.
Item 2, we have the appointment of Jack D. Colombo of Brockton, Mass. to the City of Brockton Cultural Council as a member for a 3-year term through September 2026. Invited Jack D. Colombo.
Is Mr. Colombo here? Sir, please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Fine, and you?
Good, thank you.
Would you like to make a statement to the council?
Well, I want to thank Mayor Sullivan and his staff and Brockton City Councilors and the Cultural Committee for your recommendation and appointing me. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Thank you. A motion's been made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. It carries. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Item number 3, we have the appointment of Scott Ullman of Brockton, Mass. to the License Commission as a commissioner for a 3-year term ending October 2026. Invited Scott Ullman.
Good evening, Mr. Ullman.
Good evening. It's been a pleasure serving as an alternate for the past year, and I want to thank City Council and the Mayor for taking the faith in me and appointing me as a permanent member for the next couple of years. Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Thank you. A motion's been made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Good luck.
Item number 4, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $648,038 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to the Police Department. This grant will be used towards the salary and overtime of certified enhanced 911 telecommunicators and dispatchers. Invited Eugenia Lopes, Grant Coordinator BPD, and Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Ms. Lopes. And just before you begin, I just would like to let my colleagues know Mr. Clarkson is away and will not be here on any of his matters tonight. Tiffany Casulo from the Finance Department is here, and she'll answer any questions you may have for them. Thank you.
Thank
Ms. Lopes.
Good evening. The State 911 Support and Incentive Grant is for reimbursement for the State 911 dispatchers and ETDs for the Brockton Police Department. This year, the department was able to receive extra funding. As Lieutenant Sleeman spoke to you guys earlier this month, we have the jail diversion grant, which allows the department to have a part-time and full-time clinician to go out on crisis calls. So because of that jail diversion grant, we also were able to receive $80,000 more in funding this year towards this State 911 Support and Incentive Grant.
Great work.
Thank you.
Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably. Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded to recommend this favorably. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It carries.
Ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $304,766.48. This grant will be used to reimburse overtime for ETDs, police officers, and fire department emergency medical dispatch personnel to attend 16 hours of mandatory E911 continuing education training for annual certification from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to the Police Department. Invited Eugenia Lopes, Grant Coordinator BPD, Troy Clarkson, CFO, or his designee.
Good evening, Ms. Lopes.
Good evening. The State 911 the State 911 training grant is in support of the 16 hours of continuing education that the ETDs, dispatchers, and also the 12 fire alarm operators would have to take part in, and also covers the training and all the training material for that.
Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motions have made and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? No one. Thank you, Ms. Lopes.
Thank you.
Item number 6, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $6,500 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Sex Offender Registry Board to the Police Department. Invited, Eugenia Lopes, Grant Coordinator, BPD, Troy Clarkson, CFO, or his designee.
Good evening, Ms. Lopes. Yet again.
So the address verification project, this would pay for the overtime of the Sex Offender Registry Coordinator, Officer Michael Cesarini. So this grant would allow us to go out and ensure address verification for all registered sex offenders in the city.
Thank you. Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It carries.
Thank you.
Item number 7, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $187,500 from the Department of Public Health, Bureau of Substance Addiction Services to the Mayor's Office fiscal year 24 Prevention and Early Childhood SOR Grant Fund. This grant will be funded in 2 sections, $150,000 July 1st, 2023 through July 1st, 2024, $37,500 July 1st, 2024 through September 29th, 2024, to cover a full year 24 contract and a 3-month contract extension. Invited, Mayor Robert Sullivan or designee, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer or designee.
Councilors, Mayor Sullivan's been in touch with me. He's unable to join us this evening. So I'm going to ask, unless someone has an objection, I'm going to ask Ms. Jasmine Brasher to speak on behalf of the mayor.
Hi,
Good
everybody.
evening.
Good evening. So this grant we're going to be contracting out to High Point. This will be the 2nd and 3rd year continuations of this specific contract from the state. It's for the SORPAC contract, and what it does is it does early childhood prevention, so it helps students in all of our school systems from kindergarten through high school, including Southeastern. If they've been affected in any way by substance use, it also provides all of the education to prevent substance use within the school system.
Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It carries. Thank you.
Item 8, ordered that the City Council authorizes and approves the tax increment financing agreement between the city and Air Energy Group, LLC. This agreement will contribute to the ongoing economic vitality of the city and will commit to job creation and increased revenue. Invited, John O'Donnell, Chairman, Board of Assessors, Mayor Robert Sullivan, Rob May, Director of Planning and Economic Development, Troy Clarkson, CFO or designee, Scott Rippetrezone, Vice President of Air Energy Group, Chris Lemner, Director of Facilities Flow Control Group, and Lynn Tokachik, I believe, Government Tax Incentives Consultant.
Councilors, in addition to Mayor Sullivan and Troy Clarkson, Rob May is under the weather and is unable to be with us tonight. Councilor D'Agostino.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to amend. It appears there were 2 items that were inadvertently left out of this order. We need to add Brockton Industrial Property Owner, LLC, as well as regarding 105 Industrial Boulevard, Brockton, Massachusetts.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and properly seconded to amend this order. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It carries. Good evening, Mr. O'Donnell.
Good evening, councilors. I'm here to answer any questions you may have regarding the TIF, and Lynn is here. She'll wants to make a presentation to you regarding the company. So I can answer questions now or after the presentation.
After. I'd say after.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe she'll cover it in the presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lynn Tokarczyk. I'm Government Tax Incentives Consultant for Air Energy Group, a manufacturing company that has proposed expansion plans here in Massachusetts. I am here tonight with some of the Air Energy Group team members, Scott Rippetrezone. Okay, Scott, can you just? Rippetrezone, Vice President of Air Energy Group, and Chris Lemner, the Director of Facilities with Flow Control Group. And we're so thrilled to be here tonight, and thank you so much for inviting us again. It's great to be back in Brockton. Actually, I was in Brockton several years ago working with Crown Linen Service, a company that's, I think, now a staple here in the city of Brockton. And I'd also like to thank the mayor, Mayor Sullivan, for his support in his interest in attracting Air Energy Group to Brockton, and his TIF team for reaching mutual TIF terms. And on a part of that team was Troy Clarkson, who's been extremely instrumental, Rob May, and John O'Donnell. So I really wanted to thank them for all of their efforts with this particular project. I believe you do have an information summary before you. It's basically a two-page company information summary, with the first page of being the background and history of the company, economic benefits to the city, and then page 2 is more on the proposed tax increment financing package. I'd also like to thank Chris Cooney. Thank you, Chris, for being here tonight with the Metro Southwest Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber has always been very instrumental in retaining and attracting businesses to Brockton and the region. So we have a brief slide presentation, and again, it will be the background and history of the company's proposed expansion plans, and then we will have further discussion from John O'Donnell on the TIF package. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott right now so we can move on with the presentation, if that works for you. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Once again, my name is Scott Rapatrazone, Vice President of Air Energy. We could just have the next slide, please. So what I wanted to talk about was quickly just the business flow, or how our business is set up. We have a parent company, which is Flow Control Group. Under that, we have the Industrial Flow Control, Flow Control, which is our operating group, which is where Air Energy sits. So Air Energy today has 3 locations, one in Southeastern, one in Pembroke, and then one in Lincoln, Rhode Island. One of the products that we manufacture is called Global Vac and Air. It's a mobile solution. It's a product that lends itself to medical, lab, industrial applications. What I basically wanted to do is just kind of give you the layout of how the business flows. So Air Energy is the company that Global Vac and Air sits under. That's our private brand. You go to the next slide, please. So a little bit about the company. It was founded in 1989. One of the owners is still with the company today. It is a leading manufacturer of compressed air service and components. We sell equipment. Recently, what we've done is we've started the Global Vac and Air initiative, which is now we're taking compressors, dryers, nitrogen generators, and putting them into packages. More of a value-add type situation. We've basically used our expertise in the compressed air market to expand our portfolio to our customers. Wide range of customers that we deal with, as I mentioned, lab, industrial, hospitals, colleges, universities, very involved in life science. Just to give you kind of a quick list name of our customers, Boston Children's Hospital, we're instrumental in providing critical air. Brigham and Women's, Mass Eye and Ear, MIT, Moderna, Cytiva, Gillette, Takeda. We cover many, many different industries, including food and beverage as well. We go to the next slide. This kind of gives you an idea of our products. What I really wanted to highlight here is the one in the middle upper region there, the Global Vac and Air. This is the air system that I was talking about, air and vacuum systems. These are used primarily in lab and medical. So typically what happens is when a firm, for example, like a Moderna, is starting to come out with a product, they need to have, they need to keep their technicians safe. They need to have clean air, so our systems provide clean air. When they're working under a hood, they need to be able to make sure that all of the equipment or the materials that they're working on get brought up into the hood and not into the room. So again, very critical applications for lab research, for medical research. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the nitrogen generator. So I'm sure you've seen large white tanks on the side of buildings. Those are nitrogen tanks that they actually bring the nitrogen out to the site and they fill that tank up. What we're seeing is a movement where they want to get rid of those tanks and they actually want to generate nitrogen on site. So our systems with a compressed air system creates the high pressure to actually create nitrogen on site. So it's a very vital component to a lot of the research that's being done in Boston, and we're right in the middle of that arena and providing those types of equipment. If we go to the next slide, again, it just kind of reiterates some of our customer base. Again, I just want to, medical lab, food and beverage, research. We were instrumental in working with Moderna in their plant in Norwood. We basically came in, they needed increased capacity to produce the COVID-19 vaccine. We were able to deliver an air system and give them the peace of mind with their system, and then not only delivering the services they need, but then also keep that equipment up and running throughout their manufacturing. So with those facilities, they need to be up 24/7, so if something goes wrong, we need to be able to respond, and that's what, Air Energy does. We respond to our customers with our trained service technicians. If you want to go to the next slide, this is our proposed expansion plans. Lynn, am I still up? Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, Air Energy right now is headquartered in Southeaston. We also have a sales office in Pembroke, Massachusetts, and then we have fabrication in our Lincoln, Rhode Island facility. And due to the demand, due to the drive of where this industry is going, we need to expand. So we went through an extensive real estate site search through basically southeastern Mass. We do a lot in Boston, so we wanted to have our service techs on that Route 24, Route 3, 495 area. So Chris looked at approximately 50 sites. We went through different locations, different requirements. I mentioned we build containers. One of the aspects was we needed to be able to pull containers into the building. So we need to have a ground level loading dock, right? So that's something you don't see today with a lot of the buildings that are being built. That's what was so attractive about 105 Industrial Boulevard. That had the resources that we need, the blank canvas, if you will, to allow us to build it out the way we need to. So we identified that facility, and we wanted to move forward with that facility for our plan. So if we go to the next slide. This actually shows the building. It's a beautiful building. I don't know if the council's had a chance to go out there and look at this building, but state-of-the-art building. It's 150,000 square feet. We plan to take just a little over half of it for our use, and we have a right of first refusal to expand, and we hope to expand into that facility as well. If you want to go to the next slide. Talk about our investment. So again, as I mentioned, we're going to take 3 facilities and move them into one. Our plan is move them into one facility and make this our corporate headquarters. So this will be our corporate headquarters. It'll be our second largest facility. Flow Control Group is a national company. This will be our second largest facility. It'll be our manufacturing operation for our Global Vac and Air. It will also be our training. So as I mentioned, we do a lot of service work, and our plan is to expand our service capabilities to our customer base, and to do that, we need trained technicians. So we're looking for a pool of people that we can invest into the service business. If you want to go to the next slide, this talks about our proposed job plan. So We will relocate 59 full-time positions, as I mentioned, between those 3 locations. We will also create 43 new full-time jobs. They will pertain to engineering for the Global Vac and Air, product development for Global Vac and Air, as well as assembly. I mentioned the technicians. So the technicians are basically working on equipment in the field, also in the facility. Very high sought-after positions. These are certified, degreed technicians. They are certified by the state. They are certified by the compressed air, what we call CAGI, compressed air organization, U.S. organization. That's an annual certification. And then it would be office and admin, as well as warehouse support staff. Average annual salary for these positions are $70,000 plus benefits. The other thing I like to mention too is we also have an investment program where we invest in our employees, both from a training standpoint, and then we also make them owners as well. So again, it's something that we've been able to bring. It brings people in and makes them feel wanted, feel that they have a career path. So that's really what we work to do is set people up for a career, long-lasting career within our business. Go to the next slide, Lynn. Is this still me? Local impact. Okay. So just to talk a little bit about why Brockton, right? So I mentioned the facility. It fits our needs. It's right on Route 24. It allows our service techs to come in and out. It gives us really the business establishment we need, right? The restaurants, the hotels. As I mentioned, it'll be a training facility, so we'll have people coming in. We have suppliers that come in and visit us that do training. It really provides all of the corporate service and industrial services that we need. So it does fit the bill for us, and we're excited about the opportunity, and we really look forward to growing into this building and growing in Brockton.
Next slide, please. So this really is, in conclusion, some additional benefits to Brockton. So this would really help Brockton, this would position Brockton to attract a company that has deep roots in the region. They're in southeastern Mass and just coming right over, very close, right over the border to Brockton. And it's really to attract a high-tech manufacturer to come to the city of Brockton, as well as their corporate headquarters. All the decision makers will be here, and you'll have direct access to them. It's going to increase real estate taxes, permit fees. We understand that Brockton has adopted a meals tax and a hotel tax, so that's additional revenues that will be coming into the city as well. One noteworthy point it also is that the company does operate one single shift, so one single shift. And as well as the company is very community involved and supports many programs and local organizations. I know on the education front, they're very involved with technical schools, job fairs. They're a key contributor to the Children's Miracle Network through Children's Hospital. And so we just really wanted to give you a flavor of who the company is, what their proposed plans are, and they are interested in pursuing tax incentives. Again, we're so pleased, and the company is extremely grateful that the TIP team was in the company, were able to reach mutual terms that are before you this evening, and they look forward to establishing a very strong partnership and become an active part of the business community here in the city of Brockton. So thank you so much for your consideration.
Councilor Razak.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for that beautiful presentation. This location is in Ward 7, and I'm happy to hear that. This is exciting for us, but I would like to hear from Tiffany. Could you give us an idea of what this would mean in tax, in a TIF, please?
Sure. So it would bring roughly
probably about $500,000 in increased revenue a year. I can speak to that. I can't speak to, obviously, what the license and permits in that would bring in until they start doing the construction or anything like that. It will bring in, 43 additional jobs on top of the 59 that they will be relocating to the city. But just $500,000 in increase in revenue.
Is that prior to the TIF or after the?
If they relocate here, after the TIF.
After the TIF, okay, very good. Thank you very much, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Minicello.
Thank you for being interested in our community. It's always nice to see companies want to locate here in the city of Champions. Tiffany, I had another question regarding the real estate taxes. So you mentioned that it looked like $500,000 per year. Yeah.
That'd be after the TIF.
Excuse me?
That's after the TIF, after the 7-year period.
Oh, after the TIF. Okay.
Did you get it? You should have got a copy of this.
Oh.
No.
You didn't?
You only
It's
have
in the
this.
package. Wouldn't they have gotten this?
Package last week.
No?
Well, tell us about it, Mr. O'Donnell.
Yeah, could you walk us
All right,
through
so it's
basically
a
the real
7-year
estate
TIF.
taxes, John, please?
Yep. So it's a base value of $3.9 million for the whole building.
Okay.
So they're taking 50% of the building. So the TIF would be, the current tax base would be 102, almost 103,000 a year.
Per year, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so for the 7 years?
Yeah, but so it's 100% on the, so the way the TIF works, anything over, the incremental value over the 3.9, first year they'll get 100%, second year 95%, third year is 90, then 85, 80, 75, 75. Most TIFs that the city has gone into have been 20 years. Like Crown Linden was 20 years. Westgate, the new Westgate's only 10, but prior to that it was 20 years. So this is a real short-term TIF.
So would it be renegotiated after the?
They could come back to you again if they're tenants. So they, I mean, maybe they move, maybe they don't.
Does the business require any frequent city services?
No.
Okay, so there wouldn't be any stress on any of our departments or anything like that? Okay.
We'd get excise tax for all the vehicles, all their service vehicles, so that would be a bonus.
So that's not included in the TIF?
That's not included in TIF, no,
Okay.
just real property and personal property.
And what is the hours? You said there's one shift, I guess? What are the hours of the shift?
8 to 6.
Okay, daytime hours, good. Thank you very much.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question's kind of directed to Mr. Rappazzoni. So, number one is, it was a fantastic presentation, and welcome to our city, and I'm ecstatic that you chose Brockton as the future home for your business. Brockton needs more manufacturing, more industrial businesses here in the city, and we already have a few high-end manufacturing companies here in the city, and so the fact that Brockton was able to attract another one, I think speaks well for Brockton becoming a manufacturing city for high-end products. And so, I just kind of want to wrap my mind around how you came to choose Brockton. So when you're looking to expand, right, at the point you're saying you got two different facilities, you want to combine them into one and, have one central location. I know you talked about regionality and the location where you wanted your product and your building, and you said that you looked at about 50 other different places. And so, what does that entail? Do you have a commercial real estate guy and you say, go find me a building? Or I see we have, Mr. Chris is in the audience. Do you partner with the Metro South Chamber of Commerce, put out a call for the specific type of building? So could you just behind that process?
Sure. So what we basically do is we go through an extensive forecasting, if you will, right? Because it's just not worried about today, it's where are we going to be in 7 years, right? We have a new product that we're bringing. How do we see that pipeline? So again, we looked at probably over 6 or 7 months, we looked at the business. We looked at how much space we had today, how much space we would need moving forward, and then, what do we need as we kind of go with if we knocked it out of the park, what are we gonna need? So that's kind of that first piece, is to say, okay, we're in 25,000 square feet today. We're gonna need 75,000 square feet, best guess, within the next 5 years. Then you have to kind of back into the finance of that, right? And understand how that affects your business. How do you, are you going to see that business? The other big piece is trying to find out where the employees live. So what we do is we do a map of where everybody lives. So if we're here today and we're going to move 10 miles away, what risk do we lose? A chance we lose of key employees. So we look at that. The other thing we also want to look at is, hey, we want to go somewhere where we have a pool of people that want to work, right? So again, that's when we look at building jobs, we don't want to say, well, you know what, we're going to have to transport people in, so that's going to be an added cost. So again, we go through this process of kind of refining what the requirement is, and then we go out into the market and we try to find that type of building. And when I can tell you, when we went through the process, we went to one location and the columns were too close. So now we can't bring a 40-foot container. Great property, right? Checked all the boxes, but now we can't turn a 40-foot container, right? So they get X'd off, right? You go to the next facility and ceilings aren't high enough, right? We want to be able to stack, because again, we want to use that floor space and be able to have a little bit of that extra factor if we need to restack, so we can stay in a facility a little bit longer, because it's quite a bit to move our process, our buildings. It impacts our business, so we want to have as least impact to our business as we can. So basically what we did with Chris, we put together what we thought we needed, and then we went out to, in this case, a real estate agent, and said, here's what we're looking for, go and find us properties. And they would go through and come back with 10 or 12 properties. We would go out and look at them, and we would go through that process. Like I say, this works, this doesn't work.
Now and thank you for clarifying that, is Air Energy Group, are you a member of the Metro South Chamber of Commerce?
Not today, we are not, no.
Okay.
Not today, but we plan, in Southeastern, I've only taken over the facility a couple of years ago. We just started recently to build that out, to build out that corporate identity in the region. We have reached out to some local trade schools, and we've started to partner with them. So that was really our first step at getting into the community. We did not do anything with Chamber of Commerce, though.
Okay. Well, they're a fantastic organization, yes. And it'd be probably smart
with Chris, yes.
So great. And I know you just mentioned partnerships with trade schools. I know we had a brief conversation, yes, prior to this this hearing. But I know you're familiar with Southeastern Regional Vocational Tech, Massasoit Community College, both their Brockton and their Canton campuses, and I think any type of synergies that this company can develop with those educational institutions to help train up some of your workforce, provide jobs for local Brockton residents, I think would be a win for everybody. And so, as I stated, I'd help you facilitate some of those introductions. So,
appreciate that.
again, welcome to Brockton. Thank you for choosing our community. I think you'll see that it was a wise decision, and anything we can do to help support, your coming here, the expansion of your footprint here in Brockton. We're here to help. So thank you, sir.
Appreciate that. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Rodriguez, did I read you right? You'd like to say something?
No, I was actually laughing when Councilor Azak said that the location was Ward 7. That's what I was doing.
You and I know.
I know what that place looks
In Ward
like.
4.
I'm a resident of Ward 4, so.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
But welcome to Ward 4, since, politicians and microphones, it's like dogs chasing cars. We can't just let it go, so. Well, welcome to Ward 4.
Thank you. Councilor Farwell.
Just very briefly, very pleased and proud that you selected Brockton. The only request I have of you, and you obviously have to hire the best qualified people, but if equal qualifications exist for the positions that you have to fill, I would just ask that you try to give preference to Brockton people, because we do have a greatly talented workforce, and I think that they would be an asset to the company. So welcome and thank you.
Great, thank you, thank you.
Councilor D'Agostino.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I just first want to thank you for making this investment in our city. I think it's great. I did want to just, because even when we were looking at this amongst ourselves at first, there were some questions, so I think it might benefit if we just ran through the math real quick for those watching at home, if that'd be all right. Just to make sure I'm clear on it. Over 7 years, if we didn't do the TIF, this space would generate, it looks like, if I'm reading this right, $1,937,593. Am I doing that right?
First thing you got to remember, these are estimates.
Of course.
These
And
are
they're
all
over a 7-year period. I should have said that. An estimated.
So right now, the property, this year's taxes are almost 4 million.
Okay.
So multiply 4 million times 2602. Actually, it's going to be a little less than that, $2 less, so.
Right.
That will give you what the base is this year.
Okay.
It's an unfinished building. It's a shell.
Right. And so that's, all right. Yeah, I'm glad I asked, because that's why I wanted to see. I'm seeing on here, current real estate tax revenue to Brockton, 720,000.
No, it's 102. It'd be the 3.9 times the 26. Yeah. What you're looking at there is not, so it'd be at 102 this year, 102,943 is the taxes this year.
943. So what was the 4 million was the property value? No?
4 million is property value.
Okay.
They're only taking half the building too, so you got to remember that.
Right, of course. So they're only taking half the building, right?
The half
okay.
will be assessed at full value.
Right. So this figure of 720,601 is this 102 at basically 7 years.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And this will produce an additional 158,363 over that 7-year period if this facility goes in, we approve the TIF, if this all gets approved.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. Over 7 years, the city will bring in an additional 158,000-ish in taxes. Estimated.
Estimated.
Right. That's kind of what I was trying to establish. So basically, over 7 years, this part of the building would potentially bring in, that's where I got the 1.9 figure, was adding these together. But if we approve this TIF, then that would be for $1,058,629 over 7 years.
It'd be more than that, because last 2 years, they're going to be paying 25% of the increased value. So it'll be considerably more than what the estimates are.
So this is a conservative estimate, which is obviously the better way to go, because it's always better if revenue is higher.
In case the market crashes, it could be less.
Right, right. Okay. All right. So that's kind of what I just wanted to make sure that we ran through. And again, so people watching, listening can hear the numbers, that we're talking about a little over 1.9. The TIF itself is estimated to be, $1,058,000.
Savings, yes.
Right, savings to the company, and the city will receive over that 7 years an estimated $878,964. Okay. That's all I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, although some of my colleagues would like this to be in their ward, this property is actually in Ward 4, and I've had the opportunity to meet with our applicants tonight. I just want to ask you a couple of questions, and it's basically for the viewers at home. As I think I discussed briefly when we met, this property is across the train tracks from a densely populated residential neighborhood. And so for the benefit of, and they're all my constituents, and so for the benefit of my residents, I just want to ask you, what will we see as a result of the operation of your business in this location?
It's basically just vehicles coming in. There are service trucks. There's the employees that are coming in. There is no noise. There is no fumes. There is no storage of chemicals or anything like that. So it's basically just another industrial type facility.
Okay, so I won't hear anything really out of the ordinary?
No.
And I won't smell anything out of the ordinary?
No.
Oh, that's terrific.
No. Basically, everything is its parts and components. Everything would go out to the site. So we don't do anything beyond assembly. And the assembly is literally just bolting parts together.
Okay. And of course, a tax incremental financing agreement incentivizes bringing a business to the community. And how fortunate that we have this brand-new building waiting for you, with more than enough space, so you take some now, and if all goes well, you take some more later.
Right, exactly. That's our plan.
And so because this is in my ward, I'd like everyone to know that I do support this. I think this is a very good location for this type of business, and I'll be voting in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions?
Motion to recommend favorably to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded to recommend this favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. It carries. So it will go back to the city council, and we will entertain it as a final vote next week. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It was really good.
Item number 9, ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council approve the expenditure of $176,328 from Finance Electricity to New Gen Capital. Invited Troy Clarkson, CFO, or his designee.
Tiffany, will you join us in Troy's stead? Thank you. Good evening.
This was a FY23 bill that we received after June 30th, and we are just looking to pay it out of FY24 funds.
And can you tell us what it was for?
It's for our New Gen solar agreements for solar bills.
And what is that?
There are different solar agreements that we have throughout the city. We have 4 solar companies currently, and a portion of solar credits are worked through National Grid, and this portion of the solar companies did not bill us in time, so therefore we owe them this amount of money.
Okay. Councilors? Councilor Rodriguez?
Go ahead.
Oh, Councilor.
Just a quick question. Will this, you can absorb the 176,328 without having to worry about additional revenues needed, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rodriguez?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Tiffany, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but why are we still paying for solar projects when the city is supposed to be making money out of these projects?
These are long-lasting contracts that we have. They're over 20-year contracts. I know there have been discussions between myself, Troy, and the law department to review these contracts and to actually do the analysis to see how much money we are saving on solar credits with the National Grid. That's all I can really speak to at this time.
And is this company a company that also does any work on the Grove Street site?
No.
So who's doing that now?
That I cannot speak to.
Because I don't know if any of you, my colleagues, actually have driven down on Grove Street. That piece of property it's a shame that it's gotten to the level that it has. I remember back in the days when I was with the Harrington administration, it was one of the largest solar arrays in New England when it first came to. But right now, I think it's pretty much a dumping ground. It's overtaken by brushes and growth, and it seems like one of these abandoned sites in a sense that makes absolutely no sense. But I would like to, if you could, through your office and find out exactly who owns that, or not who owns it, who is supposed to upkeep that. Sure. And if it's not producing what it should be producing, then we ought to rethink, how we're going to go about this. Because to me, spending $180,000 to generate $120,000 makes very little sense. So if it's not financially doable, we shouldn't be doing it. Because it makes no sense to go through all that for basically paying somebody for the savings that we're not really getting. So it makes very little sense. I mean, we got to pay the bill.
Right.
Because it's a bill, but I'd ask you guys downstairs to push heavily in the sense to find out exactly what's going on with these contracts, and if it's not worth to the city, we shouldn't be doing it. Because it makes no sense for us to be paying $200,000 a year for, $50 worth of electricity and stuff. So please
Sure.
check on that for us.
I will.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have information on that, Councilor Al can inform you later.
Okay.
Anyone else? Questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, it carries. Thank you, Tiffany.
Item 10, ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council approve the expenditure of $2,920.60 from auditing to Dominic J. Coppola, CPA, invited Irene Janopoulos, interim city auditor, Troy Clarkson, CFO, or his designee.
Good evening.
Good evening, council. Good evening, everyone. I'm requesting to use FY24 funds to pay a invoice that I received for services after the July 15th deadline, per MGL Law, Chapter 44, Section 56A. These were services that were performed by an external auditor in the office by the name of Dominic Coppola, who has assisted with producing reports internally when it comes to completing the audit and any kind of auditing work that would be required given the unfortunate circumstances in my office due to turnover. Again, I apologize for not doing a better job of making sure I got a quote ahead of time so I can open a requisition in time by July 15th. But this is a cost that I can absorb in FY24, and I appreciate your consideration.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, it carries. Thank you, Irene.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
On item number 11,
Yes.
I would like to move that we waive the reading of each individual amount to the penny. It's posted on our website. It is part of the record, and that the clerk read the total appropriation and the departments where the money will be apportioned.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you, it carries.
Madam Chair,
Councilor Lally.
I'd like to make an additional motion to amend some of the language. Would it be better if I wait till after?
Let me read first, and then we'll make
All right,
that a motion.
I'll make the motion after. Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chair.
Item 11, ordered that the City Council confirms the previously approved fiscal year 23 appropriation of $207,570.68 for purposes of funding the Brockton City Employees Union BCEU contract. This provides funding for the first year of a 3-year contract, July 1st, 2022 through June 30, 2025. From Human Resources Employee Benefits, $207,570.68 to contractual union costs for animal control, personal services other than overtime. These will all be personal services other than overtime. Assessor's Office, Auditor's Office, Board of Health, Council on Aging, DPW Administration, DPW Refuse Division, Elections Commission, Information Technology Center, Law Office, License Commission, Parking Authority, Parks and Recreation Department, Police Department, Public Property Department, Veterans Office, Weights and Measures Department. As again, these are personal services other than overtime. All invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, or his designee. And now you could make that.
Councillor Lally.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
I'd like to move to amend the order to strike the words confirms the previously approved FY23 and insert in its place the words authorizes the, so that the first sentence of the order reads that the City Council authorizes the appropriation of $207,570.68 for purposes of funding the Brockton City Employees Union contract.
Second.
A motion's been made and properly seconded to amend the order. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you, it carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
Good evening, Tiffany.
This order is to fund the first year of the BCEU contract. The funds are coming out of a FY23 appropriation. I do want to make that clear. If you remember, for setting the budget for FY23, we as in Troy and I, put additional monies in the Human Resources Employee Benefits line item to fund any of the union contracts that would be settling within the fiscal year. This contract, as well as many others, did not settle within the fiscal year, or some did settle within the fiscal year, but it was at the end of the fiscal year. However, what we did is we encumbered the funds, and we would be paying those funds out of FY23.
Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? Okay, it is recommended favorably. Thank you.
Item 12. Whereas many Brockton Public School students walk to and from school, and whereas pedestrians use sidewalks and roadways for travel, and whereas counselors receive periodic inquiries and complaints from residents regarding intersection, pedestrian, and student safety, and whereas it is critically important to update and renew goals and objectives for the safety of residents through the efforts of our Traffic Commission and Department of Public Works, DPW. Now therefore be it resolved, the Traffic Commissioner and the DPW Commissioner be invited to a meeting of the Council to discuss the feasibility and implementation of a citywide study to update regulatory signage, crosswalk markings, areas lacking sidewalks, and such other issues as may relate to the safety of school children and pedestrians. Invited, Captain Mark Porcaro, Brockton Police Department, Patrick Hill, DPW Commissioner.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for having us here tonight. Obviously, pedestrian safety is a very important issue to all of us. When I read the resolve, I kind of got the feeling that it was the safety of school children that seemed to be the important issue here. So, you know, one of the things, you know, I'm trying to get a feel for what you're looking for from us. Are you looking for a citywide study on pedestrian safety, or are you looking for something else?
Counselor Farwell is the sponsor. I'll let him respond.
Thank you.
Captain, just briefly, and we can continue this to another meeting if we have to, there are a lot of children who walk to school.
Sure.
And in some areas, they have no sidewalks.
Right.
So I was looking for a study that might identify or prioritize when we receive funding, where should we put in sidewalks? Where could we enhance safety for children who walk to and from school? But in general, because we unfortunately have had a lot of accidents in the city, it's not funny, but I think more vehicles have hit buildings in the last 5 or 6 years than I remember in an entire career, and it concerns me because you're up on the sidewalk, you're striking a building, and it's a miracle that we've only had a few people killed, unfortunately, because of pedestrian issues. So I was kind of looking at you, both of you, getting together and coming up with a comprehensive overview of the city where you think we can do a much better job, either through signage or through some type of a caution light that might be solar powered, whatever either of you think would enhance the safety of the public, but particularly school children, because it gets dark early when we go to our standard time setting. I really think it's a necessity.
Sure.
And I'd like to see, I don't want some knee-jerk reaction. I really wanted like a 2 or 3 page report as to what you both think we could do better.
All right, then.
That's all.
All right, thank you, sir. One of the things, I had listed some things after reading this resolve that I thought I could kind of answer for you tonight, but down on the bottom, you had looked toward, you wanted to discuss the feasibility and implementation of a citywide study to update certain things. One of them was regulatory signage. So that was the first thing I looked at. And, many of you have either served on or been before the Traffic Commission. And when it comes to signage, as many of you know, you bring an issue to our attention. We go out, the subcommittee goes out there, we investigate it, we bring it back to the full Traffic Commission, we vote on it, and we install a new sign, whether it's a 30-mile-an-hour sign or a no parking sign, a pedestrian crossing sign, whatever it is, we go out there and we install those. When they do get damaged, when they get knocked down, the Traffic Commission or the DPW will come in and will repair them or replace them. So updating regulatory signage, it's an ongoing project. It never stops. The Traffic Subcommittee was out there today, myself, Chief Galligan, Deputy Chief DePasquale, and we were looking at issues to include new signs to accommodate the new request. So it's an ongoing activity that never ends. And please encourage your constituents, if they feel that their street or an area needs a new sign, they'd like us to take a look at it, we will absolutely go out there and take a look at it for them. Crosswalk markings, again, another thing that's we do this every year with the annual line painting, the pavement line painting. We go out, we just wrapped it up a few weeks ago, but it goes spring, summer, and into the fall. Every year, every crosswalk in the city gets repainted. That's how important it is to us. Every line, every double yellow line, every fall, we try to repaint the entire city as much as we can during that season, but crosswalks are always a priority. That's the first thing that I start in April. I have the paint companies go out and start painting the crosswalks. So that's an ongoing thing that happens all the time, every year. And when it comes to crosswalk markings, as you know, councilors, if you have an idea of where a new crosswalk should go in, you bring that before the Traffic Commission. The subcommittee goes out there and we look at it. We investigate, should a crosswalk go in, yes or no? If we think it's warranted, then we send it out to the traffic engineer who does the actual traffic study, applying the federal and state rules on whether a crosswalk can go into that location, and then they bring it back to us for a final vote. So again, that's ongoing, happens all the time. Areas lacking sidewalks. In my almost 3 years on the Traffic Commission, we have gone out, I believe it's Gordon Street, 2 years ago, and we recommended back to the DPW to install a sidewalk, brand-new sidewalk on Gordon Street to accommodate the students going to and from Brockton High School. So that's one of the things that the Traffic Commission has been involved with alongside with the DPW. And then lastly, I noticed other such issues related to school children and pedestrian safety. A few weeks ago at the Traffic Commission meeting, I don't know how it came up, but one of the members had mentioned that not long ago there was a citywide pedestrian safety task force. Might not be a bad idea I don't know if it's still in existence, but if you want to revive that, I'd be more than happy to sit on that. Pedestrian Safety Task Force. We could periodically review pedestrian accidents and see what we could do better, if the traffic engineer needs to get involved to reassess a location. Again, I'd be happy to sit on something like that and help you guys out that way. And then there's a proposed roadway safety ordinance. I think that'll go a long way, if it's passed, towards pedestrian safety. So those are just some of the things that came to mind when I read the resolve that, I felt like I'd mentioned to you tonight.
Counselor.
I just have one last suggestion, and that
Sure.
is if either jointly or you, Captain, author a letter to the different school principals that they could read at the Parent Advisory Council meetings and say,
Sure.
is there any feedback that you'd like to offer regarding significant areas where child safety is an issue?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that's hard to quantify the benefit of doing this, but I'll feel better if I think we've done all we can to raise awareness and get people involved in giving us feedback about these different areas.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention, and take it for what it's worth, but, we're talking about pedestrian safety, and somebody had brought to my attention, how about pedestrian education? In school, we have driver's ed for the kids in high school. Maybe we get them when they're a little bit younger and give them like walker's ed.
Yeah.
I know when my daughter was very young, I taught her to look both ways and how to cross the road safely. I don't know if every kid's getting that, but maybe the schools could kind of educate them a little bit on that too.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Counselor Lally.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, Captain.
Good evening, sir.
As a former traffic committee man myself, I know the important work that you do. The road safety ordinance, I was just, hoping for the public, if you could spell that out a little bit more. I sponsored it in the council. I'm just hoping you can.
Right. I read it once, maybe about a week or two ago, and just off the top of my memory, it's going to be, and I know Councilor Thompson has been heavily involved with it. It's a proposed ordinance that, if passed, will encourage our walkers to use the sidewalk. Was I wrong on that one?
No. No, I think Jack just throwing me looks. No,
I'm trying to figure out, was that you sponsored that? I sponsored something you sent me that I thought was for roads. That was for the speed limits.
I might be confused then.
Okay.
No, it's an ordinance that I sponsored and submitted, and hopefully being heard before the ordinance committee relatively
my
soon.
Mistake. I had the speed limit one, you had the safety one. All right, yeah. Oh, my mistake. Hi, Shirley.
Hey, Jack.
All right. The proposed ordinance, the roadway safety ordinance, would encourage people, would make it, local law to, if there's a sidewalk for the pedestrians, to use a sidewalk.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's common sense, but it's, unfortunately, we have to go in that direction now. So where there's a sidewalk, the walker is expected to use the sidewalk. Where there's no sidewalk, the walker is expected to stay between the curbing and the fog line. It's an ordinance that's just trying to encourage people to just, if you want to walk, stay out of the road. This in a nutshell.
Well, fair enough. I apologize, Councilor Thompson, for my error.
No problem.
Another thing that I think the city got a lot of mileage out of before, and I don't know whether or not we're still really going for it or if we're able to. I don't know if you can add to it, but it is the Safe Routes to Schools grants. We were able to get a lot of sidewalk and a lot of roadway done with Safe Routes money. And the biggest matter that I have to what Councilor Farwell was saying, The areas that need sidewalk the most in Ward 6 are areas that, really see a lot of kids, a lot of traffic to schools. The top of North Carey Street, leading to the Ashfield School is very tricky for kids. Lisa Drive leading to the Brookfield School, and I'll be clear at the front, it is half Councilor Thompson and half myself, but Court Street east of North Quincy as well, leading to the Baker. These are areas that we have that kids are walking hopefully between the lawn and the fog line, but they don't have any alternative. And some of them could be pretty tricky, especially with, the way people drive.
Yeah, in my 3 years on the Traffic Commission, I've had really no involvement with that program. I don't know if that's something that the school department has been doing on their own. I don't know do you know, Commissioner?
I'm not familiar with it, but
yeah.
I am familiar with I'm familiar with the program. We have not applied for it in the past couple of years, to my knowledge. There is, a Mass DOT has their own program, which is Safe Streets for All. We are meeting with Mass DOT next week to discuss getting a plan together with them to establish safer areas. So the pedestrian safety areas have been identified by Mass DOT through data. Brockton is, I think, second worst in the Commonwealth for pedestrian fatalities. So we've set something up with them. We're meeting with them next week. We'll be establishing a plan to do both quick deployment actions to try to get some of these high fatality intersections kind of started, and then they're going to work on a plan with us to try to get us better access to the tip money, whether that be improving signage or improving roadway conditions or generally adding traffic lights, whatever we need to do to increase the safety in those intersections.
Yeah.
Safe Routes to School is a federal program run through US DOT. I think to get started, we work with the Safe Streets for All program. It's probably going to intertwine with a lot of the stuff that is missing. And I know areas like the areas that you're talking about up in there, we've had those areas looked at several times. And, unfortunately, it comes down to finance at that point. I mean, you're talking $20 million to put those sidewalks that you just mentioned in. We've applied for earmarks through our representatives the past several years, and we've been unsuccessful.
Nope, fair enough. Yeah, that is something that it's encouraging to know the state program seems to be a little more open, area-wise. But it is something that, sometimes it's just the way the road is, the physical layout of the road. We've had that problem with North Quincy Street. There's, such a long stretch where people can speed that when you have someone who really abuses it, they put a lot of people in danger. But that's, by and large what I have. But I do want to echo Captain. I think the pedestrian safety committee, some kind of review and certainly some kind of education would, I think, go a long way. I appreciate it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Mendez.
Yes, this one would be for the DPW, the commissioner. As the winter months is approaching, the big issues that we see with the sidewalks and the school children is the issue of snows and making sure it gets plowed on time. Any plans to making sure that this year we'll handle that a little bit better? Because I know that's a huge concern, because then kids are just walking in the middle of the streets in the busy traffic.
So plowing sidewalks is a huge undertaking. I think we plow 30 miles of sidewalk every storm. We have, 12 to 14 pieces of equipment to plow the sidewalks with. However, this year, we have not had a lot of engagement with contractors for plowing. Right now, we're just below 70. We should be at least at 110. What that is going to mean for us is that we might have people that would traditionally be out in sidewalk equipment during a storm in regular equipment to get the streets cleaned and then have to follow up with the sidewalk clearing after. but we'll do the best we can with it. It's a little bit early to say one way or another if that's going to be the case, but it's always a difficult thing to get engaged with clearing sidewalks, and I mean, like I said, we'll do the best we can with it.
And I know that's always a priority when we have these snowstorms, to make sure that the sidewalks are plowed for the kids. And I did see the signs that the city does need more plow.
Yeah, we've put it on Facebook, we've put it on, all the social media outlets. We have a couple of those roadway signs out in the road that we keep moving around looking for, hopefully encouraging people to apply, but we haven't seen anything from it yet, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Minichiello.
Good evening, Captain Vaccaro. Just a little different pedestrian, I guess, activity. If an officer sees a person walking in the middle of, let's say, Montello Street on the solid lines in the middle of the street, how would an officer educate a person that that is not wise behavior, and what type of resources to dissuade such behavior are at the fingertips of law enforcement?
I mean, I would think it would be reasonable if the officer got out, approached the person, obviously called them to the side of the road, to the sidewalk, and just explained that, what you're doing, the road's not meant for you to be in the middle of the street. What you're doing is dangerous to you and the motorist. Don't do it again. Stay over here. Stay off to the side of the road.
And if the behavior continues, and what resources does one have as an officer?
If it's the same person over and over and over again, I guess we could explore maybe a disturbing the peace charge or a disorderly conduct charge, but, that could be an option.
Just checking. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, I'm just going to recommend this favorably because in January, we'll have another council, and we can have the gentleman come in for an update, and the councilors who are here can hopefully add to the discussion.
Okay.
So I'm going to move to recommend favorably.
Second.
All right, a motion's been made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All in favor? One opposed? Thank you. It carries. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Councilors.
Item 13, resolve. Be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite Jasmine Bradshaw, Director of Social Services, and designees of organizations that partner with the city and offer services to the city's unhoused population to appear before the Finance Committee of the Brockton City Council to discuss resources and social services in the city of Brockton. Invited Jasmine Bradshaw, Director of Social Services, Josh Brown, Father Bills in Mainspring, John Lanham, Father Bills in Mainspring, Mary Corlin, Bamsey Cope Center, Pastor Roberto Silvera, Homeless Improvement Project, Judy Gustafson, Homeless Improvement Project, Lieutenant William Schliemann, Brockton Police Department, Officer Donald McMillan, Brockton Police Department, Peg Tiberio, Champion Plan, the Gandara Center, Indira Andrade, Champion Plan, the Gandara Center.
Thank you. Councilors, I understand that Allison Pinkover is here from the Brockton Neighborhood Health Center. In addition to the people we've just listed as invited guests, unless anyone has an objection, she's welcome to speak.
No objection.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So last time we were here, we had talked about many of the different service agencies that the city partners with on a regular basis in regards to helping our unhoused population. So I had put together a list and then sent it to Council President Nicastro so that she could invite those people here to speak tonight. So the hopes for tonight is that they can just explain a little bit about what they do on a daily basis and then answer any questions that you might all have.
Thank you. So who's going first?
Good evening. My name is Mary Corlin. I am the Director of Harm Reduction Services for BMZ. I oversee the Cope Center in Brockton on Pleasant Street. We are a drop-in center for unhoused folks, along with all types of people that can come in to get supplies for harm reduction supplies, hygiene supplies, safe sex supplies, anything to prevent the spread of disease. We also have an outreach team that goes out into the community and brings supplies to unhoused folks in the community. We have donations, clothes, blankets, things like that, tents sometimes that are donated for people that are sleeping outside. We provide HIV, HCV, and STI testing, overdose prevention. We give out free Narcan. We provide educational trainings. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything else. So we have an outreach team that goes out and meets folks in the community that that come into our center, but also we get calls if there are people sleeping outside that may need supplies. We try to help provide services, connect them to care, or just provide, hygiene supplies, blankets, things to keep them alive and safe. I think that's about it. Okay.
Someone else? Yazwinski.
Good evening. John Yazwinski from Father Bill's in Mainspring. Thank you for having us this evening. So Mainspring House, of course, is the emergency shelter for homeless individuals in the city. Currently, we have around 114 guests on average every night right now. That number we're at has been recommended by the Department of Public Health based off of the COVID recommended guidelines coming out of COVID. So we are definitely looking at, and we'll be having conversations with Brockton Neighborhood Health, great partners of ours, just like everybody here, about as it gets cold, when we have people outside, do we increase that census for people, even though that's not what the recommended guidelines are. Demand for services over this past year are definitely up. It's up everywhere. Every community in Massachusetts and every community across the country, we are seeing more campsites, more people specifically struggling with mental health and substance use issues. Over the past 2 months, approximately, we've seen about 30 more people than we saw last year at this time. So we've seen that increase. About 60 to 65% of the people that we assist at the Mainspring House are from Brockton. 80% are from Plymouth County. We get state funding to help us with the resources at the shelter. And so it's really just people come in and we accept them so that they're not outside. We do a point in time count every year. The Congress asks everybody to do the last January of the month, and so we'll be doing that again this year. For street outreach, we have 2 outreach workers that we fund from state and private resources that are out working with these other organizations. In recent years, we've seen, right now we estimate about 50 to 60 individuals currently sleeping outside on a nightly basis. Every one of us probably would have a different number right now, but we're out there every day continuing to work with people. Over the last year, our triage team diverted 52 individuals from the streets requiring shelter. So we've been continually be able to move people into stable housing or into treatment programs. So overall, we are continuing to see this as, of course, a housing crisis, but it's also a substance use crisis, and it's a mental health crisis overall. So with that, I'll turn it over and answer any questions.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Judy Gustafson. I am the office manager of the Homeless Improvement Project. And I'm just going to say a couple of words to explain what we do, and then I'll let Pastor Roberto Silveira, our director, talk a little bit more directly about our services. But we are a mission outreach. Pastor Roberto and his wife, Pastor Rose Silveira, founded the Universal Charity Foundation, which does work in Brazil, in the U.S., in Brockton, and in Cape Verde and other parts of Africa with the poor. In the Homeless Improvement Project, we work directly with a lot of the same people as Father Bill's, and we work with Jasmine, a lot of the other organizations in the city who work with the homeless people to try to help people better their lives and to try to help them better their situation so that they're not in a terrible situation. So I'm going to let Pastor Roberto talk a little bit more about what we do. Pastor.
Good evening.
Good evening, Madam President, councilors. My name is Roberto Silveira. Like Judy said, I'm from Brazil originally. We've been running the days program with the homeless we've been open for 13 years. The Homeless Improvement Project was created to start with, discussion group, book club, and evolved to feeding from early in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I asked Alex to come with us. We create a city clean city crew that we did before the pandemic, the COVID. We used to clean the streets voluntarily. But we are evolving to create more interest on keeping the city clean. And everybody who's been working, they are all volunteers, but they come from the homeless community. We're bringing them in, counseling them, guiding them, and helping them understand that we can do better than we do if we do something, to make us feeling better about who we are. And the whole idea is to help them get, out of the streets. I believe that we all trying to do the same work. I have a list of names here that we collaborate. Well, we collaborate, first with Mainspring, John, and this whole group of Father Bill. Stairway to Recovery, we work together. We work with Champion Program. We collaborate with Neighborhood Health Center. They come twice a week with the mobile clinic to serve. We've been finding out after all those years, after 13 years that I've been working with the homeless, that, once we can bring the service to them, because most of them don't feel comfortable to go to the service. We have to hold their hands. So the Neighborhood Health Center has been coming twice a week with the clinic, a mobile clinic, to serve the community. We try to bring them in, try to get them out of the street, and help them, with, rehab or detox, plus feeding and clothing and all the hygiene and all the situation that they cannot get on their own. Instead, going to a store and steal what they need. We've been providing the basic of what they need. And we have also worked with the Plymouth Outreach group from the Plymouth County. City, we have every Thursday we have a meeting with the city on the GER. Yeah, and trying to do something to beautify the city, to get the city clean and make the city, look very, very nice for those who come here for the first time. We're trying to really see, we want to help. We want to help the city, but we know that the people who are out there on the streets sleeping every night behind my church, a large number of immigrants that's arriving here from Haiti, from the Hispanic country, they all come to the shelter, and from the shelter in the daytime, they have nowhere to go. So we're trying to embrace them and make them feel a little bit safer. It's like the Haiti community that's just getting many people coming to Brockton right now. They have nowhere to go, they have no relatives, and they're afraid. They go behind the church and they sleep in the daytime there. So we are here to offer our service, to bring a proposal to keep the city like my brother here, he used to be on the street. Alex lived in the street for a long time, many years, more than, 20? Wow. 20 years. So about 20 years on the street, but he recovered. Now he is putting back to help the other ones that he knows how to get them out of the street because he's been in the street. And we are trying to really create this group, like the Clean City crew, to do the work that needs to be done in the city, cleaning the sidewalks. I remember we had a workforce advisor that is not active anymore, and we're trying to see how can we get funded, because everyone who works should get paid. And we have homeless people who, instead of going to steal something in the stores, we want to make them feel that they can produce, not only produce enough to get out of the street, but in the future maybe pay taxes, help with, keeping the city up to the proper way, that not only take from the city. Because I know it costs the city, every time that the ambulance comes to the park to pick up someone that had an overdose, cost the city, the economics, and I know it's taking out from other projects. We are in Narcan. I believe that everyone here knows what's an Narcan, because we are right beside the shelter, beside the park, what they call the Perkins Park, what nicknamed Perkins Park. We are there to serve and to help those people who are in a situation where they are, to bring them out. That's the whole idea, to bring them out, place them. Well, Father Bills has the best, I believe, in Brockton service for housing. Locate people in places, that they own it. And this has been, part of our collaboration. Whatever they do there, we try to use the service that they do, but on a daytime, the people have to come out of the shelter, and they have nowhere to go. So if they can't stay in the park, they're going to come to my property where I am. So we cannot handle the overflow, the finance, the economics burden that comes over us. And I'm coming to the city today to see if the city can finance the service that Alex, who's run the crew right now, has been cleaning the city. We have no, finance coming from any organization that help us, but we want to keep doing this, but we need to help the people who are in the street wanting to do something good and trying to bring them to the position where they can have their own house or somehow get housing based on if is the government subsidy or financed by someone, and get them jobs. The whole idea is to give them the first step and help them get to the second and the third step until they are able to really sustain their lives, sustain themselves. And I like to ask a permission to bring a proposal to the city councilors to see, we're here to work. I'm a volunteer. 13 years I've been a volunteer. I never got a paycheck from my church. I never got a paycheck from the HIP program. But we want to do this because we believe that the people who are in the street, they are just like us. They just through a phase in a bad time of their lives, but I believe that is a recovery. Every human being deserves, a chance, and we are there to trying to give that chance to them. And I thank you. That's my heart that I like to, can I help you? That's all.
Thank you. Your proposal would be best presented to the mayor.
Okay. Amen. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Peg Tiberio. I'm the Program Director of the Champion Plan here in Brockton. We're a police-assisted program. We are 7.5 years old. We were created by former Mayor Bill Carpenter. People go to the police station to use our services. Those are our initial services. We put them in detox. 7.5 years, we've gone to the police station over 1,900 times to pick up people and put them into detox. But when COVID came, rightfully so, many people had to stay home and a lot of services closed, and we saw that need. So we were able to stay open and let people come and work with us. Sometimes it was in the parking lot or in the lobby, but we learned a lot of needs that some people couldn't really understand. A lot of the mass health paperwork they were getting, a lot of changes in mass health or their DTA. Sometimes they were trying to find out what to do with their immigration status. So we learned with the people that came and knocked on our door. And so we asked our providers if we could start helping people get birth certificates and mass IDs. So people come to see us. We've gotten birth certificates from all over the United States, and including France, Germany. So we become pretty creative and learn a lot about other places that people are born in. We help people get mass health. We help people get their Social Security card. There's so many restrictions now because of identity theft. If your parents were not married, your birth certificate is restricted. That means that you have to provide a photo ID. But to get a photo ID, you need your birth certificate. So we've become very creative, and people have been very helpful. Jim Frazier at the City Hall has helped us. If somebody was incarcerated, we could get a picture. DTA has pictures of some people on their food stamp cards. Some town halls are very good to us and will accept something as small as a Social Security card and a mass health card. It takes a little bit of time, and it's very daunting for the people we work with. Many times when we start this 30, 40-minute process, 10 minutes in, they'll say, that's okay, I don't need this, because it's very hard, the patience, and because they've been on the street, they're tired, they could be hungry, they've lost their medication, someone has stolen all their documents. So we want to be there for them for basic needs. We have food, we have some clothing, we have a lot of great resources. All the people who are talking here tonight, they're all angels. You have angels in your presence. People who help me, I call on the phone and they're right there. I need a sweatshirt, I need 100 pairs of socks, I need food. It just comes to me through all their resources. So my boss told me to say that Champion Plan sees a need and fills it. That's who we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Allison Pinkover. I'm the Director of Substance Use Services at Brockton Neighborhood Health Center. So that means that I supervise all of our programs related to substance use and homelessness services. I'm briefly going to share about some of the services that the health center provides to support people who are experiencing homelessness and share some concerns on behalf of the organization. Since 2001, BNHC has operated a small medical clinic located inside of the Father Bills and Mainspring shelter with the goal of providing walk-in urgent care and preventive health care to residents of the shelter and people otherwise experiencing homelessness. During 2022 and 23, the clinic experienced some challenges with staffing, leading to some periods of closures. However, as of this month, the clinic is now regularly open 5 days a week with medical staff. On average, BNHC serves more than 800 individual patients who are experiencing homelessness every year. As some of you may remember, in 2021, BNHC launched its Community Care in Reach mobile addictions program in partnership with the Kraft Center for Community Health and the Healing Communities Study and our colleagues at the BAMC Cope Center. Since its start, the mobile unit has provided more than 1,340 clinical encounters for medical services to 304 unique individuals, 790 of which visits were treatment for substance use disorder, and the remaining 550 for essential medical services such as wound care, STI testing and treatment, and other urgent and preventive health services. Our Community Care and Reach program is nationally recognized and one of few of its kind in Massachusetts. Despite the loss of grant funding for staffing, we continue to run this program unfunded because of the critical role it fills in providing services to people who would not otherwise receive medical care. In conjunction with these specialized services, BNHC serves many people who are experiencing homelessness at its clinic at 63 Main Street, including in our harm reduction clinic, substance use disorder treatment program, Ryan White HIV services, urgent care, and primary care services, including behavioral health clinic-wide. In partnership with the organizations here today, BNHC has a longstanding legacy of providing medical and behavioral health services to people experiencing homelessness in Brockton. Now, as I think we are all aware, we're at the confluence of several challenging public health and social issues. First, the increasing number in the homeless population, newly arrived migrants and migrant families to our city, increasing rates of infectious disease, including tuberculosis, and an ongoing, unrelenting overdose crisis. What we have observed is that the approaches and the policies historically used often have unintended consequences. If our intention is to enact policies that preserve human life and health, then it's important to understand these outcomes. A recent study in the Journal of American Medical Association found that the continual involuntary displacement of unsheltered people, commonly referred to as sweeps, was associated with increases in overdose and mortality, as well as a decrease in life expectancy. It was very clear in this study that there were no feasible scenarios where sweeps improved or were even neutral to health. They are hazardous to health. It makes it incredibly difficult for service providers to locate patients in need of medical care when they are continuously relocated, pushing them further into marginalization and isolation from services. It also erodes the trust that we work so hard to build as service providers. During these sweeps, precious resources are often discarded. Last week, I received our yearly donation of empowerment coats from the Patriots Foundation. These are winter coats which unzip into sleeping bags for our unsheltered patients. They're valued at about $150 a piece. They are the only protection that some people have from frostbite and death in the cold winter months, and my fear is that these resources will be lost in our current situation. What is more upsetting is the vital documents and sentimental personal items that people lose. We've heard stories of people losing the only pictures of their children that they have. We are also well aware that our local medical system is currently extremely overburdened with the prolonged closure of Brockton Hospital, the closure of Compass Medical, and other clinical closures in the past year. When people's medications are discarded in sweeps, we drain resources from an already taxed system. It requires BNHC providers to take clinic time to refill prescriptions that we can't bill insurance for, and then eat the cost of the co-pays when we need to waive them when they're too early to go through insurance. That is a non-reimbursable cost that we incur. We also know from the same 2023 study I've mentioned that sweeps decrease medication uptake by patients, working in direct opposition to the shared goal of stabilizing people. Lost medications often include treatment for HIV, hepatitis C, and psychiatric diagnoses, which can be harmful if medications are abruptly discontinued. What keeps me up at night is that in 2022, we saw the highest number of opioid-related overdose deaths in our state and in our city ever. 61 Brocktonians died from overdose in 2022. Now is not the time to employ strategies that increase overdose risk. The risk has never been higher. I often think back to BNHC and the city's shared efforts in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. Never in our efforts would we have relied upon ineffective or hazardous solutions for addressing a public health crisis. We relied on our community of experts to move mountains to save lives during the pandemic, and this issue is no different. It requires a response of equal magnitude and effort. It is critical that we prioritize the use of approaches that preserve life, dignity, and the expertise of the providers here before you tonight. As complex and intractable as this issue may be, your unhoused constituents are your constituents, and our community is stronger when we work together to support all of us. I thank you for allowing me the time to speak tonight, and I appreciate your attention and time.
Thank you.
I have a question.
It's my resolve.
Show resolve.
It's my resolve, yeah.
I'm going to start with Councilor Azak. She was the principal sponsor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you to Jasmine for bringing everyone together. Thank you to all of you. I know each one of your organizations, and you do amazing work. There's no question about it. And we know why everyone comes to Brockton, because we have, you know, a lot of heart here and a lot of amazing organizations. But one of the reasons for this resolve, why we put it together, and I know you're all meeting regularly with this task force, which is great, and I will be able to make it to one of these meetings. I know you're advocating for our unhoused population, and we have a lot of resources for them. But what's happening in Brockton is that there's a huge effect on our businesses, and our businesses don't have any resources. They're cleaning up after, whether it's drug use, illegal activity, or just human waste, and they're pleading with us, and we can't afford to lose our businesses in the city of Brockton. We're working on revitalizing our downtown, but it's become very difficult because, and I know this issue's happening throughout the country, but right now my biggest concern is Brockton. And I think with what we have in the room, we can work together to figure out how to help our businesses, just because they're pleading with us. And I know that we can all work hard, but if we're all working in different directions, there's no way we can keep moving forward. And once again, I thank you, but if you want to comment on that, Jasmine, that would be great.
So we do have several of the business associations as well as some individual businesses that have reached out to our office directly. So I am in contact with them. We are creating a very specified resource list as far as people that can come pick up needles, hazardous waste, helping with the removal of human waste. They are able to reach out to me if there are people on the actual property. A challenge we are going to be facing going forward is that we, at the time, have been advised, due to something that is sitting in the Supreme Court, that we are not to remove encampments off of public property at this time unless there is adequate shelter space to refer people to. With the number of people increasing that are becoming homeless on a regular basis and the number of beds in the shelter not increasing, we are possibly going to hit a point where we do not have beds to refer them to. So we can continue to ask people to move along and refer them to shelter until we get to that point. But I do just want to let everyone know that that is a challenge that we are trying to find other measures to address as we are going forward. And with the expectation that this winter, from what everyone is saying, is not going to be a great one, there are also a lot of safety concerns with that. When we do run out of space, where do people go? Where do we put them? How do we keep them safe? But with that being said, the private properties of the businesses are allowed to ask people, obviously, to leave their property. That is a different situation. We are working with people. If they put no trespassing signs up, they are then able to ask the police to move people along. If they don't want to go that route, they can call me, and I will kindly go have a conversation with somebody and just let them know that they need to relocate to a different place. Some of those conversations have gone really well, and they've worked out, and others, as some of you I'm sure have heard, have not. It's just a continuous thing that we're working on. So,
Thank you, Jasmine. I wasn't aware of that, but that's very interesting, which doesn't help us. But is there any talk of any other shelters being built in any surrounding towns? I mean, can anybody help us? Is there any expansions anywhere? Is there any talk? It just seems like our burden is just so huge. And
today, Governor Healy actually, a statement came out that she had made. Due to the number of migrant families that are coming, we are seeing an increase of migrant families and individuals in our shelter systems, in our hotel spaces that are using emergency shelter funding. They are at the point where it says, "We can no longer guarantee shelter placement for families who are sent here," is the quote that is in this article. And I can send this to anybody who is interested. It's from the Globe. But basically what that means is, as of November 1st, they are telling everybody who's being sent here from other countries that unfortunately we can no longer promise them a shelter bed, a hotel, whether that's a family or an individual, just because we do not have the funding, we no longer have the shelter space, and we don't have the hotel space. We are running out of resources as a whole. There's, yeah.
Father Bill's also provides emergency shelter for families throughout the region. We shelter over 160 families a night. We've been, this whole family shelter system about a year and a half ago, or over the last 10 years, has had about a little over 3,000 families, 3,000 shelter beds for families across the Commonwealth. We are now close to 7,500 families within a year. We were going into a crisis prior to having so many families coming from out of the country, coming into the United States, but not to that pace. So there's been, Massachusetts is a right to shelter state. We're the only ones that have a law on the books that says we need to shelter people. But we're at a point now in the Commonwealth where the family shelter providers, we have more than doubled the capacity. So just like we're having crises on the individual side, the crisis is also happening on the family side. And so we're all going to be faced, the Commonwealth, and the governor did a press conference today to know that, come a couple of weeks, November 1st, they're not going to change, she's not going to go after the right to shelter law, but what she's going to say is we're full at 7,500 families where the system was built for 3,000 at this point. And then we're going to be really dealing with now not just individuals outside our communities, but families also. When your question about other shelter providers, one thing I want to, and I'll come back at a different point, would welcome it is, I'm sure you guys are all aware, and thank you for support, that we're moving Mainspring House, right, where we're going to create a housing resource center over on Manley Street. That will be 24/7. That will have a licensed healthcare clinic run by Brockton Neighborhood Health. That will be a facility that we can allow people to stay during the day, to engage with people. So we're going to be putting more resources in, not just to be a nighttime shelter, but wraparound services there, plus another 32 units of housing. It's not going to solve all of the problems of the city today. We've got to keep focusing on housing. Father Bill's in Mainspring will continue to develop housing outside of the city of Brockton to make other communities be part of the responsibility. We have a 100-plus bed shelter in Quincy. We have a shelter program in Plymouth that we operate with the churches. There's a program in Wareham. Bristol County has shelters. So there's shelters, across the southern Mass, but everybody's facing an overflow issue.
Thank you. Thank you again, John, for with that information. I just wish they were a little closer, like maybe the Bridgewaters or Easton, but just because I think you mentioned earlier that 80% are from Brockton, 80% of the...
65% are from Brockton.
Okay.
80% are from Plymouth County.
Plymouth County. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine. So, I'm just pleading up on behalf of the business community. Like I said, we won't have a city, our homeless, our community won't have a city if we don't help prosper our businesses. And it doesn't matter whether they're downtown, north, west, east, they're all suffering. And, they're picking up needles, and I just wish there was some kind of program to help support them as well, because they're really suffering. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Jasmine, and good evening to everybody who came tonight. We really appreciate you coming before us to speak on these issues. As you all stated, we have hit crisis level when it comes to the unhoused throughout our country, and especially in Brockton. And so I'm glad that we're all working together to kind of find a pathway forward. We're never going to solve the problem 100%, but can we mitigate it? Can we do something that helps our businesses, that helps our residents to manage the situation as best as possible? And I think, Pastor Roberto, you were correct in that we have to begin with compassion. We begin with empathy, and then from there, we try to put in reasonable policy policy plans that can help mitigate this situation. And so I just want to talk about a few things. Number one, we brought up the state policy regarding encampments versus beds available. How do we calculate beds available? When we're looking at Brockton, is it just what we have at the emergency shelter? Is it the surrounding areas and what they have available? How do we calculate what our available beds are?
So as far as family shelter, DTA would tell us the number of placements left available. So all family placements go through the DTA program. There are certain requirements that you have to meet in order to get into family shelter. So they do an intake process with everybody, make sure they have the appropriate documents, and then they would place them in locations that are accessible, and that could be anywhere in Massachusetts. We have people recently that we've seen go as far as Chicopee, sometimes further. So that we get that information from the DTA. That's who we recommend that everyone reaches out to if they are migrant families coming. A lot of our agencies like Haitian Community Partners, Latin Women's Association, Cape Verdean Association, and very many others have been working with people to do the translation services and all the paperwork that's needed to help with their placements into family shelter. As far as the individual shelter, like John had mentioned, they go off of the recommendation currently following COVID. He can speak a little bit more to how that number would change.
So are they're bifurcated between family shelter and individual shelter. And so if we see an individual encamped, we would go by the individual bed available to determine whether that encampment can be removed or not. So maybe John, if you could speak to that. How do we, is it only what beds are available in your facility, or do we have a circle for a region of beds, or please explain?
Yeah, so Father Bill's in Mayspring between Quincy, Brockton, and Plymouth. The state just procured the individual shelter system last year and a half, so good timing to answer this. There's about, the state invested in kind of this region, 250 beds. So that's, about 100, let's say we've averaged, 130 beds at Mainspring House. About 125 to 130 in Quincy, and then well over 300 if you add in Plymouth. So we're paying for more beds than what the Commonwealth is giving us for the resources. So you're right, it's just really based on what do you have for a facility and what you can get funded for. They said they funded this region for, so Mainspring, again, we can flex up. But it's basically for us, it's how many people can we get into the building, and we know we'll flex up more than what we're averaging right now as we get into the winter time. Now, for people that are outside, though, absolutely we can say, hey, do you want, if you're from a different community, if you're from Taunton or New Bedford, they have a shelter program. We help them get there. We divert them to those places if they'd go. Same thing, Boston, we're always kind of going at it with Boston and say, Boston says, oh, there's so many people from the South Shore, Brockton, in Boston. And we say, well, some people sometimes end up in Brockton from Boston. So there is a geography issue there, but overall, sad to say, that's what the numbers are for the individual side, not counting getting people into treatment programs.
So when it comes to the AG policy about removing encampments, and I'm not talking about those in the woods or anything. I'm talking about those who choose to encamp on our sidewalks or on other public property spaces in our parks. We would send out Jasmine, and I'm sure there's communication between you all the time, where you would know that, say, hey, this is an encampment, there's available room over at Father Bill's. We give our 24-hour notice, and we can remove that encampment. So I just want to make sure that, as of today, let's say, do you have available room individually?
Yeah, like I said, I think right now we've got 20 people sleeping on our floor. So we've got to make a decision right now going further. Are we going to go above what the post-COVID recommended guidelines are, to be able to take more people.
Okay. And who does that go through? So, because from my understanding, the COVID emergency has been ended.
It's recommended guidelines by the Department of Public Health. You're absolutely right. We could say we're going to fill the building up like we used to do. Not saying we're not going to do that.
Okay, but that's an internal decision or policy of Father Bill's and not a mandate imposed upon you by the state or anybody else.
That's right. It's just going against kind of recommended public health guidelines for the community.
Okay, understood. And then secondly, on the back of that, I understand that during the COVID crisis, regionalization kind of took went out the door, right? Where, as you said, if somebody from Taunton, somebody from Boston, somebody from outside our region was looking for shelter, we could turn them away and direct them to a shelter within their region. Prior to COVID, during COVID, we kind of, that restriction was removed, or at least this is kind of what I heard. Maybe you could inform me of that.
The state had never procured the individual shelter system until this year for the last 30 years. So prior to that, we had a 3-day stay policy. So if you weren't from certain surrounding communities near Greater Brockton or near Greater Quincy, we would take everybody in that night, because a lot of the referrals people coming in are from the police department, the emergency room, local people, right? Or people are just walking up. We don't want them to be outside. But then we would absolutely say, oh, you're from Taunton, you're from Boston, whatever, there. We would say, we're going to work with you, we're going to get you out of here in 3 days. So we knew we could get people back to the community, even if they didn't want to go, right? When the state procured the system, they said, you can't, if somebody walks up to your door to get service, you've got to serve them. You can't put those type of, develop home policies like that. You have to serve whoever comes to your door.
You said, so that's the new policy implemented this year?
The procurement, probably over the last year or so, couple of years,
So at this point, you got to serve anyone who comes to your door?
We've got to give them shelter. But absolutely, I wouldn't get so concerned about, like, people are running to Brockton to get shelter. People go to, a lot of times, to the cities to get a job, to get health care, to get other social service things. People might get sent here to go to a detox. They walk out, they have no place to go, then they end up. Very rarely does somebody go straight from eviction to the emergency shelter. It takes a lot of other steps to get there. So even if we find out somebody is from Boston, they've probably been in the Greater Brockton area for a while, staying with a mother, staying with an aunt. There's some local connection or tie. Maybe they went to school here, been out of town for a while. It's very rare that someone's like, I'm going to go all the way to Brockton to sleep on the floor at Mainspring House.
Now, and you can positively identify every single person who comes to your facility? Like, meaning, do they have to bring identification?
Yes.
Okay, so, all right. You mentioned, and I was a big supporter of the move of Father Bill's from our downtown area to Manly, and I know you just briefly mentioned it, but could you give us a quick update about when you believe that facility will come online?
So construction is happening. As you know, we've been doing some infrastructure work over down there. Everything's getting delayed with product and all of that, so don't hold me to it. Our hope is that we could be looking at maybe a year and a half of construction at this point. So hopefully by this time next year, we're starting to talk about the ribbon cutting.
Okay, great. All right. Also, just this is kind of for the public's information, and there's a lot of scuttlebutt out there about, who's coming into Brockton. A lot of people say that they anecdotally see busfuls of people that are brought to Father Bill's and dropped off, or at least they're, could you maybe speak to that, clear up any misconceptions, or maybe confirm if it's true or not?
I would also ask my other fellow friends here, I'm not aware of any, buses coming to Brockton, dropping people that are homeless off. I do think that we have seen, or I've heard, I haven't seen, of a lot of migrant families getting bused to Massachusetts, potentially. We were a part of the Vineyard families. We ran the Cape Cod Air Base for those migrant families that came over last September that were flown here, right? So I think on the family side, I think some of that might be happening mostly to Boston. And then I think, maybe families are making it here from there on the migrant side.
What about in our individual shelter? Are we finding a lot of migrants?
I haven't heard anything. We do have an uptick of recent arrivals, to Massachusetts. A lot of people from Haiti. They are people that are coming over with their family, maybe not even directly coming from Haiti, maybe coming from other parts of the country, other parts of Central America. Or when they're going in as a family to the welcome centers that have been set up for them, they're separating the families. We're separating the families in Massachusetts. So what we're seeing is a mom and 2 kids will be coming in maybe with the grandfather, the uncle, the older brother. If anybody's 18 but not the direct caretaker of those kids, the state splits them up, and then they're like, oh, send them to the individual shelter. We've already seen at Mainspring and Father Bill's probably over 50 recent migrants over the last 6 weeks. Prior to that, we hadn't really seen too many people. So that is increasing, but some of that is really from the family side.
And what's frustrating is, as a government body here and as nonprofits, and we're here to help, right? But it seems that our federal government and our state government at times are failing us. Our borders wide open, which is allowing this migrant crisis to really metastasize. And then you say we have a right to shelter law, only state in the nation that has it, again, kind of shooting us in the foot in this process. So, people understand, they get so angry about this situation, and I can, I empathize with them, but we're a city. We're dealing with the individual in front of us, and, we want to help because, that's our calling, is to help people in need, and we're beyond capacity. We don't have the resources, we don't have the funding, and so now, we have to work together to mitigate the issue as much as possible so that our civil life can move forward, our businesses can operate, our residents can freely walk our downtown without fear of harassment or seeing some of the things that are going on, the open drug use, the open intoxication, the needles, the graffiti, the feces. So,
I would say, Counselor, I think a lot, because it's similar. There's a lot of Brocktons in the world, right? Cities that are size of Brocktons. Not, you got the Bostons and the Chicagos and stuff, but it's a lot of Brocktons in the world. And I think what we're all seeing right now is this is one of the, things that we're all dealing with because of after COVID, right? How many people didn't get treatment for substance use, mental health during COVID? How many people didn't get health care access after COVID? How many people there was a moratorium, eviction moratorium that's been lifted? It's like a tsunami that's coming at us all at once. Doesn't matter if it's housing, doesn't matter, if it's, whatever it might be. So this is you're right, this is a big wave. We've got to get through it together.
Yes.
And I think you're right, in the homeless, with the substance use, mental health, it's all coming at once. Because we just lifted all the guidelines, right, but people weren't getting the services for how many years, and now it's just kind of on top of us overall there.
And it's going to be a multi-year effort to wade through this. But I do appreciate your time. I could be honestly, I got questions for all of you, but I don't want to take up everybody's night. What I'm going to do is Jasmine, obviously, I'll be attending all of the homeless task force meetings. I know most of you attend those meetings, so I'll reserve my questions for those meetings. But again, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for offering your services. We need your help, and we're here to support. So I hope we can all work together really to wade through this crisis and, just help our city and help our residents. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Counselor Farwell.
I just have some specific questions, and I agree with what's been said, especially by Pastor Roberto. These are people, they've got mental health issues, they've got addiction issues, but I have to tell you, I'm sitting here and I just feel like we're losing. I just feel like we're losing. And I don't know how much patience the public will have with us, because we're going to get the calls. Why are they camped out under the bridge? Why are they roaming the downtown? Why are they depositing body waste in alleyways? So the first specific question I have is, when we give out a packet of needles, do we require that person to bring back needles, or do we just hand out the packages and we have no idea where the needles are discarded? Because I thought originally we required people to get 3, bring 3 back, or get 6 and bring 6 back. And where are we with that?
So we don't have a requirement. It's not best practice for disease prevention. So there isn't a requirement for people to bring back syringes. It's highly encouraged. Our numbers are pretty even so far for the fiscal year for how many collected versus distributed. But we also are collecting syringes from, pharmacies. You can buy them at any pharmacy. You can purchase them. They're legal. So we collect syringes from other places, not just the ones that we give out, but also from cities that do syringe take-back days, anything that's out in the community, and people that are coming in to get syringes.
But if we did have that requirement, would we not in a small way encourage or discourage the random discard of needles, which really worries people? They're always afraid that, somebody's going to be walking somewhere and step on it, or some kid's going to pick it up. I mean, would there be any downside to saying, listen, we'll take care of you, but you have to bring back the needles after you use them?
So if we have somebody that is HIV positive, we don't want to tell them, no, we can't give you syringes to use in the safest way possible to prevent the spread of disease, because you don't have any syringes to give us. And then another example is, if I have one syringe, then I can come and every day I bring you my one and you hand me one, and I come back and I hand you the one and I give you one. So it's just not best practice. We want people that are using to use in the safest way possible. And I mean, it's not just the spread of disease, it's also infections, things of that sort, using a new syringe every time, not sharing them, things like that. And if we require that they bring syringes in, then some people just won't get them.
Of all the issues that we've talked about tonight, have we reached a point where perhaps there should be more of a campus-style place for people who have substance abuse and mental health issues, away from a densely populated or highly urbanized business district? In other words, have we reached a point where the numbers are so significant, the issues are so significant, that to locate these services in a business district where businesses depend upon people to come into that area, frequent the business, and obviously support it, but they won't do it because of the issues that are being presented by the people who need our services?
If I can add to what Mary was saying around the issue of syringes, because I think this is a question that we get a lot, and there's a lot to unpack there. The CDC guidance is that people should have a new syringe for every single injection, right? So that's the goal. And in 2021 was when the one-for-one exchange policy was revisited by the Board of Health. We were the only city out of 33 different syringe service providers that had a one-for-one policy, and that was very discouraged by the Department of Public Health. So I say that to say it's a bad public health practice. It's bad public health work to have a one-for-one syringe policy. A lot of times it will result in people bringing back containers of things other than syringes, because if there's the one-for-one, it's like, oh, well, I have this container full of syringes, but also some other stuff. And it's a really bad practice that's been studied at length in a lot of different settings. And so I think as a person with a lot of years of public health education, I would say it's a bad policy. I think your second question around campus-style services or what have you, I think there's a misconception that if you build it, people will come, and it's not my experience that that's something that is necessarily true. I think one thing that, myself and certainly others would caution and manage expectations is that moving the shelter to Manley Street is not going to move everyone who is homeless out of the downtown area. I don't think that's a realistic expectation. I think that when we push services away from where people already are, they don't access the services. So I don't know that building something that is a campus is something that's necessarily going to work. But I think what we have found is that working with the businesses downtown is something that we want to do. Mary and I talk to businesses all the time. I know everyone who's been here is with the businesses all the time. We are happy to go out and pick up syringes. We're happy to go out and talk to people. We're happy to build those types of relationships with the businesses, provide them supplies. If they're saying, well, I'd rather just pick this up myself, but if you give me a Sharps container, I'll do it. Or if they want to call us and we go do it. I think really there's a lot to be said for relationship building, because I've been astonished at the feedback the businesses have said to us, which is the same humanizing feedback that everyone here has had, is we want to help, we just kind of don't know how right now. And it is hard to be a business owner, but I have been really refreshed at what the people who own businesses downtown really have said, because I think they're taking some of that perspective as well. There are people who are upset, and there are also people who are very, I think, compassionate about the situation that's going on.
And I would just say having a one-for-one exchange rule may be bad public policy, but it's also bad policy to have people just throw syringes around. It's your representation then that businesses actually want to pick up these needles themselves? Am I hearing you correctly, that you've built relationships with businesses and they want to pick up these Sharps?
There are some who said we would like a Sharps container because I can pick it up myself in 30 seconds if you give me the tools to do it. There are others who prefer that we come and pick them up, and we do that.
Okay, and where are we in that process? Are we slowly working our way through the downtown area? How many businesses would you say have expressed their willingness to participate in that way?
So I think some of the community downtown meetings we're at regularly as representatives of the health center. I would say we have gone to go see in the last 2 months probably at least 7 different businesses in the downtown area. Like I said, some wanted supplies on their own to address some of that. Some wanted us to come pick stuff up. And I think what gets missed a lot too is not only the health center, but also the COPE center. We're out there all the time also picking up syringes, right? So every shift that the mobile unit is out, they're also picking up syringes. COPE center sends people out to pick up syringes all the time. We, next Wednesday, have a 4-hour session in the afternoon. Jasmine has given us a list of addresses that need some attention. And I think not just the health center and the COPE center, but multiple other agencies are going out in like a fall cleanup, right? So this is work we do regularly. I think it's also helpful for us to hear that the areas that need attention, because that's something that we don't necessarily hear enough. We can't address it if we don't know about it. So I think, having those open lines of communication is really helpful.
All right, and I guess the last couple of questions, 65% of the people are from Brockton. So 2/3 of the people are from Brockton, but fully 1/3 of the people we're servicing are from outside the city, but perhaps in Plymouth County. Jasmine, I guess this question is, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy that the more we do, are we not going to attract more people that want the services?
I would say that you would have that challenge anywhere. The problem that is a benefit for us in some ways and then also a challenge in others is we have so many services that we are able to offer people so much support that this is a great spot for people to come and get things. And we do move people into housing when it's available very quickly. We are able to work with all these different agencies and get the people that are ready into housing. We don't see it, but Father Bill's housed an astronomical number of people last year. When I was talking to Josh, he gave me multiple names. I saw people that had been on the streets for years that I thought for sure I would see pass away before they ever got into housing, get housed and have successfully maintained housing. The problem is for each of those people, we saw maybe 2 more show up every so often. And some of the people that we're seeing on the street, and I know it's hard to differentiate, some of the people you see every day are not actually experiencing homelessness. They're people that come and visit friends and hang out under the bridges and have a place to go at night, but are contributing to the problems we're seeing because they don't really feel like there's a need to change those things because they already have the services they need, whereas the people that are then looked down upon because of that, unfortunately, kind of bear the brunt of the assumptions that everyone makes. I worked at the Cope Center when I first started my social work career for about a year. And that's when the 1-for-1 was in practice. And we had people that would come back and we would give them a needle and they would lose it, or the needle tip would break off inside of their body because they tried to use it multiple times because we were closed when they tried to return it. There's a lot of things that are playing into what's happening. Like Allison and Mary said, they go out on a regular basis. I can call either of them at any time and they'll send someone to go pick them up. The problem we're having is a lot of the trouble is not our unhoused population. It is our normal population. We see people throw trash out of windows. We see people throw needles out of windows. I've seen people that are not unhoused using in some of the areas where our unhoused stay, or they go and rob our unhoused people, unfortunately, because sometimes they are under the influence and aren't aware, or they're mentally unaware. We have a lot of things contributing to the problems that we're seeing. And I think, and I had met with Councilor Thompson, there are ways that we can still address this. So I don't want any of you to feel like this is a hopeless effort going forward. We have options. I've asked people to start cleaning up after themselves, and we are seeing minor changes as we're going. And it's a continuous reminder for people that have to relearn these daily living tasks and have to relearn how to take care of themselves appropriately. But with everyone's support, we are seeing changes. It's just we need more housing if you want to see that large scale kind of shift of who's outside and how public it is, because it's always been there. It's just much more visible right now until we can get a housing facility to put people in.
But they'll still come out of the housing during the day, though.
Yes, so that's unfortunately, as long as we continue to be a city, that is going to continue to happen because we attract people that like this busy atmosphere. There's a lot of cover when your city is this busy. The police are very busy on other calls for other things. So those things that you might think are being overlooked or not being addressed appropriately, by the time the police get there, they just can't address them because they don't see them. So a lot of it is things like that, like addressing things immediately when we can, trying to get people who, you know, are housed and able to go somewhere to find other things to do to make sure they have opportunities for employment or that they also have resources for substance use. Because once people get housed, a lot of times they feel isolated and don't feel like they can go back to the resources they previously were working with. And we heard that a lot in shelter. People would move into their units but still keep coming back. And we're like, you have somewhere to go during the day, why aren't you staying there? And they're like, my friends aren't there. So we have to find ways also to kind of get people more involved in their community because they are our residents as well. And that's something when we had the focus groups with Pastor Roberto's church, they don't feel like they're welcome to some of the events that the city has. So a lot of times it looks like they're not doing anything or they're hanging out in the park and getting into trouble because they aren't sure if they're welcome in some of these spaces.
Well, I appreciate everyone's efforts. I will tell you that we are all in this together. I don't articulate as much on the downtown area as my colleague from Ward 5, but if things don't change, you are just not going to have a viable business district downtown. We are in a fight, I mean, make no mistake about it. And I'm usually a pretty positive person, but I just feel like that when I hear this tsunami coming at me, I don't think I can swim as fast as I used to. So I'm just concerned that things have got to change, or we're not going to have the downtown area that we deserve and we should have.
Well, I would say a lot of the housing that we've done, I hope, because a lot of it's in a lot of your wards is, you know, when we opened up the roadway in, 69 units for people, you know, Mark, I think it's been a good asset to the community since we've been there. And the people there are at that building, and we're building community in those places. So I think as we build housing, we have to think about building some community in these buildings and in that area, right? So they're not traveling anymore to downtown maybe or whatever it is. The housing we build too is for the people that are really struggling the most. That's our role with it. So, you know, many of the people that are been down in the Montello area, we did stuff with Shirley years ago, you know, where the Phantom Hospital used to be, and, you know, where Catholic Charities building was. We've had 2 buildings there. That served the chronic homeless from the city of Brockton. 93% of those people have stayed housed more than 3 years. You know, 99% stay housed more than 1 year. People want to be housed. That's the conversation we need to have. When we give somebody a key, we can then work on recovery. We can work on mental health, right? It's really hard to think about education or recovery or counseling when you're fighting for a bed every day. So we've got to be committed, not just here, but, you know, in Massachusetts, to more housing for people of all income levels there. The other thing I would say is we should really take a look at best practices in the country for cities our size when they've had unsheltered units. Let's take a hard look at it at a high level, you know, at a high level. Let's look at that because I think there's things that we can learn, and if we have the political will to all work together in this space, I think we can make some improvements because it's going to take some money too to do it, but we can share that burden there. You know, for years in the city of Brockton, there was a tent city. People probably remember Tent City down at the CSX. And what did the city do? People were down there longer than Mainspring House, the shelter, has been in this community. There was 50, 60, 70 people living outside for over 40 years. They helped each other in the community. We didn't have all these people randomly. But what did we do? We bulled it down, took all their stuff, and now we've got campsites all through the city. Maybe we need to start thinking about how do we support people that live outside? How do we give them a welcoming area as we then build the trust and get them into housing instead of continually moving them around? Not to say that Tent City was a good thing, but it was where we knew where to go to work with people.
Well, finally, I would say that no matter what you do, the state needs to put more money into mental health services and addiction services.
Yes.
Because it's, you know, it's that old three-legged stool, and if you only take care of one or two legs, you're going to fall. And I'm not convinced that the state puts the money where their mouth is in terms of mental health services and addiction services. But thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rodriguez, followed by Councilor D'Agostino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. I think it's pretty simple when you're the only city in a county of 27 communities that we have the issues that we have. I think the other 26 communities in this county have neglected their responsibilities. And I'm not going to go against John in terms of what percentages of the folks are from Brockton, but I remember about 4 years ago when I was downstairs, we actually had checked because I had actually brought in I think, Chris, you remember that, brought in the town managers from the various towns around the city saying, You know, it's a Brockton problem, but it's not a Brockton issue, because we actually had checked and we found out the numbers were the other way around. Somewhere around 70% of the folks that were coming into Brockton were not from Brockton, you know, back then. It has changed, or whichever way it has gone, but it's very simple to see. You know, they're not going to go into Easton because Easton does not have the services that Brockton provide. They're going to come into Brockton. But it's up to us, all of us, to kind of work together to be able to do this. And I think we have to hold some of these folks' feet to the fire, in the sense, to make sure that they're doing their part to help us out. I mean, we had talked about putting some day programs in Stoughton, in Easton, in other places, and be able to bus them into those programs. Because the issue is not necessarily the night issue, because the shelter will take care of them at night. It's the during the day thing, you know, where you know, to borrow something from TV, it's like The Walking Dead. You see walking back and forth. That gives this sense of a perception of a severe case of homelessness in the city. I mean, if you're talking about 140 people in a city of 106,000, 110,000 people, it's not a great deal of folks who are homeless. But it's the perception of, when you see the folks repeatedly, that creates that instability, in the sense. And before I continue, I want to say to Allison from the Neighborhood Health Center, you might want to check with Elvira, the coffee place down here. I was there a couple weeks ago, and she gave me an earful of someone that basically is up to here with the issue, that somebody needs to kind of reach out to her and, you know, help her before she loses it altogether.
I
because
talk to
it's
Sandra
kinda,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we have to do that, but I figure I bring that up. But I want to go back to John, and nothing against you, Jasmine, but I want to talk to John for a second, if I could. Whatever happened to Work Express of the 2007s, back in the days when I was, you know, in the Harrington administration there? Whatever happened to it?
It really became where we had to make a decision of, are we going to be Department of Labor issues, employees? We're not a work program. So it was going to be where, like, okay, this has got to be like something beyond what we have the capacity to do to get it up to the standards of what you should be doing. So for us, it absolutely, you're right, became something where it's like, we are not a cleaning company. We are not built for this type of thing. And we got federal funding, went away. Everything went away. So it was going to have to be all earned income to make it work. And just we're not in a position. And then COVID hit. And then it kind of went down.
It was a great program, because often you saw those guys in the red shirts, you know, going up and down Main Street, cleaning it all up. Because I drove this morning under the Crescent Street Bridge into the downtown area. It was atrocious. I mean, it wasn't just under the bridge. It was actually on the sidewalk. I mean, there were pieces of clothing all over the place, shoes, I mean, you name it, you know, all over the place. And it was just, it's not the most inviting of scenes, in a sense, to kind of help people. I mean, honestly, to be honest with you, knowing the conditions of some of the streets in our downtown area, I don't know how these businesses are actually coming through and saying, you know, I want to move my business into the city, when they basically see what the rest of us are seeing in the streets. It just doesn't make any sense.
Also for us is, we're getting a lot of people jobs back into the workplace. So it's like, for us in general, our population, for people that's ready, willing, and able, they're moving into housing quickly, they're moving into employment quickly. What we're seeing is our population is much more, our fastest growing population is people 60 and over, and we have a lot of people that have a lot of disabilities. So even the working people are working quickly. Now, it's this environment we're in too right now. We've got a lot of people that struggle with more of the fixed income side.
And when you say you used to get federal funds to run the program, are you saying we used to get the funds through the city? Wasn't it part of the CDBG funds or something like that? They used to help pay for that program?
The CDBG, was a very small component of what would be needed to run it the right way, where you would have to have employees, you would have to have health care, and you'd have to run it as a company. That's not, Father Bill's at Main Spring just isn't built for that. What we got from the city was, for CDBG was not even close to that.
Is there any way you can work with Pastor Roberto, since he seems to think that we can actually put together some sort of a working crew to help us clean up this downtown area? Give him at least the structure of what you had in place?
Yeah, so we can absolutely show him what we had in place. You're right, we looked at it, our attorneys looked at it and said, we need, this is a lot of liability here.
Yeah, some day laborers or something like that they might be able to get paid under or something?
I would love for there to be a work program in the city. I think it should be run by the work program, and we would have people that would love to work in that program. Father Bill's just isn't going to be the ones that can operate that.
Well, it makes sense. I can understand that. So, Pastor, that's probably something that you can work with John, and maybe he can give you some pointers on how he did the program, and perhaps we can throw some resources behind it, because it makes very little sense that we're paying, staff members with federal funds in excess of $80,000 for minor jobs, and something that's more urgent, in terms of cleaning our streets, we're not putting the resources behind it. And I think we need to do that. Allison, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts, because this is all stuff that I think about every day when I'm here in the city. And a couple weeks ago, I walked from 63 Main Street to all the way down to St. Patrick's Church, right? So that's about a mile. And I counted the number of trash cans that I walked by, and it was 2 in a mile, right? And so I think that there's also a question of is the built environment suitable to what we see? Is there a place for people to throw trash? The answer right now, I think, is probably not adequate. The trash cans downtown don't have lids on them. Trash blows out of them all day, right? There's no public restroom. I don't know about anyone else, but I have to go to the bathroom multiple times a day. That's like a necessity, right? Like, it's a thing, and I don't say that in jest. Like, I say that in all seriousness, that I don't know that we can ever expect another outcome than cleaning up human waste from downtown when people don't have a place to go to the bathroom during the day. Like, I don't know that that's necessarily realistic. The other thought that I'm having as you speak, I'm not here tonight in that capacity, but I'm also the chair of the Board of Health of one of your neighboring towns. If you want to know which one it is, you can look. But I will tell you that it is still an issue in every town that is around us. There are encampments. We know there are encampments. And I think we're experiencing the exact opposite issue that you all are talking about here, where we have groups of people that we don't know how to help because there are no services, right? And it's like this fundamental disconnect between places that are neighboring because they're divided by these municipal lines. And we have to find a way to really share those types of services together, because here we have all of these services, there's all of these other issues, but the issues are there, right? There's numerous encampments, people will die, and there's no services. And so I really think that there's a space for a really productive dialogue if we cross some of those lines as well.
No, I appreciate that, and I thank you, Pastor. Because I'm seriously, it's not because I liked the whole program back in the days, but I think it's something that makes sense, that you don't have to have a great deal of resources or number of individuals to, on a daily basis, have a crew go down, in the downtown area, picking up the trash and doing those things. I think the little effort, will make a big difference in the city. I mean, yes, the homelessness issue will continue to be a problem. Housing is going to be a problem no matter how we look at it. Contrary to what our counselor is saying, it's not people jumping ships to come to Brockton to become homeless, in the sense. That's not what the folks are jumping the borders for, but it's an issue that affects all of us in the sense. I mean, if it's going back to the days of people going to the hospital because they couldn't speak English, and the doctors and nurses thinking that they're choosing not to speak English. not understanding. That's not a choice. Most people that do not speak English, if you ask them whether or not they choose to learn English or not learn English, 99.99% of them would say, I want to learn English. But yet the perception was that, well, they're coming here, they don't want to learn English, they don't want to do any of this stuff. So just to make sure that we understand that people are not coming across the border so that they can become homeless in America, because if that's the case, they could actually do the homelessness where they are, and not coming here. But go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I agree with you. And about how our neighbor towns, and they should be also be coping with the cost of sending their people to Brockton. Definitely would be a great collaboration or partnership if we could work more closely with the shelter on that. And we've been doing like a 25, 50, Alex can say, needles a day. We go to the Perkins Park, clean the Perkins Park around our church, and we have a serious problem with, defecation and all the human, waste, like Sister said, and because we have no bathrooms, we have no porta potties anywhere, and that could be a solution on keeping the place a little bit clean. That comes with another problem. I used to have 2 porta potties behind the church. Well, we worry about someone dying inside of that we don't know. And it is not an easy solution for anything that we have in front of us. It is going to take a lot of work, a lot of collaboration, and I love that saying that I learned first thing here in America, together we stand, right? Together we can make it work, but we need also put our hearts and put money on where's our heart, because everything costs. So I'm open to any suggestion that we want to work. We have the labor force to do the cleaning. We have the homeless. The homeless comes to me every day. I feed about 100 to 150. 8:30 in the morning, they come for their breakfast, for their coffee and pastry, because they have no other place to go. Yet they have a place, the shelter, but when they come out of the shelter, they have nowhere to go. And that is the problem. If they have nowhere to go, where are they going to be? We cannot do like they used to do, get an incinerator and put all of it inside an incinerator. Just to, disappear. They will not disappear. The word of the Lord says that we always going to have them around us. How are we going to solve that? By helping them get them out of the situation that they are. And sometimes it's going to take more work than we want to do. But collaboration, the towns surrounding should hold the responsibility to help Brockton, because Brockton shouldn't be coping with all the cost of that. I remember we had a meeting when you were the mayor and the city, and we spoke about that. And I really agree that we need to hold people, responsible, liable for their responsibilities. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for the work that you're doing, but I think we need to put a little more elbow grease in the sense, into especially in this downtown area, because it's just turning people off in terms of businesses coming into our community. But I appreciate all the work that you do. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I did just want to add, we had some trash barrels added this week, so it might have been this morning or maybe Friday afternoon near the bridges, to see if that might help with some of the thought process of reminding people to keep their space clean. And we also, during the homeless task force meetings, are looking into options for public restrooms where we could prevent people from being stuck inside in an overdose, where you would have a more visible vantage point. As far as like the Portland Loo is something we were looking into. They are very expensive, but there are some cheaper options. But for anyone that can come to the meetings on Wednesday morning, we'll be having one at 10 over Zoom. That is some of the stuff that we talk about. So,
thank you. Councilor D'Agostino.
So I'll start by thanking you all for being here. What I've come to realize between 2 weeks ago when you were here and tonight is I really had no understanding of this issue, and probably still really don't either, but I'm learning, and so I thank you all for being here and helping me, and I'm sure others learn more about this issue. The first question I have, and because in the interest of time, I want to cut my comments short. The email, Jasmine, that you sent out inviting us all to the meeting, are the rest of these folks on that email chain? Okay, because I have some questions for some specific people, and I think
I can send you the specific emails for everyone, too.
that would be great, and maybe that would be better rather than, continuing on into the evening. If
I can do that first thing in the morning.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah, I think maybe that'll be the way to go. I think what I'll just conclude with, John, I wanted to say that I was really glad that you made the comment you made about, because it makes sense. We're talking about folks with addiction and mental health issues and addressing that, but they still have no place to go, and seems to make sense, right? Have a warm, safe place to live first. Okay, now let's work on the other stuff, right? And unfortunately, those are expensive issues. That's probably the most expensive part, and that needs a state and federal solution, because of the price tag of it. But anyway, yeah, that would be great if you could send me that list, and I can engage further. And thank you so much for everything you all do and for being here. And yeah, I'm kind of sitting here at a loss of just kind of taking this in. But again, thank you very much.
Councilor Texera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here before us. We got kids that walk from school. They go under the bridge. When they see the needle under the bridge, their first reaction is they okay. When they see, I'm not against homeless. When they see the homeless shooting, is that okay? What's the mentality that you're going to bring to the city for the kids, especially for the kids? And my second question is, I own a business right on the corner of School Street and Montello. Been there for 14 years. This past year, I'm really thinking hard to move out of that location. Now, one morning that I go to my workplace, I don't find need on my property. I just put up a fence about 3 weeks ago. Last week, on the corner of the fence, it's all desecrated. And I'm just tired. Not against homeless, but I'm tired. I got a tough decision to make because I got families that depends on me. And they got their own problems. And I think about them. It has to be collaboration. What's the solution? It's not easy being a business owner in this area, especially in downtown. My business is down about 43%. I got to think hard. And with the needles behind my building, the other day I count about 15 needles. I got pictures. 15 needles that was dropped just between the railroad track and my building.
So your building is one of the locations I gave to both Allison and Mary for regular checking. So they'll be adding that to their regular outreach list to look for needles when they go out after our conversation in the office. And it is a location that I've watched people walk through the parking lot, and they're constantly sitting on the barrier kind of around the lot. One of the barriers that we're facing right now is, in addition to not moving encampments, because we technically do not own the property where the people sleep underneath the bridge, MBTA needs to take a stand as far as making sure that they're asking us and giving us permission to move people along. But part of that also falls into the idea of, is that considered public property where it's a public entity? Because if it is, we cannot move the people for the same reasons that we can't move the campsites for cruel and unusual punishment. We were advised for now to stop forcing them to leave. until we can find a better solution or a better place to recommend that people go. So these are all things that we're looking into. Is there a singular place where we can recommend that people go to for campsites? There's a lot of liability that comes with that. So there are a lot of things right now making it very difficult for us to relocate people and move people and mitigate the situation. So I understand that the businesses are going to be seeing a really large brunt of what's going to happen with this new legislation that's being considered right now. I don't have a direct answer for anybody, unfortunately. All I can say is that we're continuing to recommend that people go somewhere else if they can. We refer people to shelter when we can. If they have family somewhere else and we can pay to get them to that family to stay there instead, we have that as an option. It's an individual basis, and I know that that answer isn't good enough for people because they have to make a living, but that is what we can do right now, and I just want everyone to understand that we're going to keep doing that, and we're going to keep searching for other solutions. I just ask that you put your faith in me that we can make a difference in what's going on as a group. It's just going to take a little bit longer than we'd all like, so.
And the kids that walks to the school and from school, and because I watch them every morning. You know, they walk right around my business by the mattress maker. You know, it makes me think to see a 10 years old, 12 years old going to school and see that reaction when they see the, you know, it's not a healthy, especially for the kids. And it's something that we need it has to be collaborative. It has to be together. See what we can do.
Absolutely.
Especially to prevent those kids. Because, you know, the needles right there, like I said, on my parking lot, every morning I see needles. It's myself and Mary Walden. We there picking up trash. You know, it's frustrating. You know, and we need to come together.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone who hasn't spoken would like to speak? Okay, then I'm, Councilor Isaac.
Thank you. So I just, once again, want to thank everybody for being here this evening. I know this has gone on, but it's a very important issue to all of us in the city, and we appreciate all the work that you all do on a day-to-day basis, but I will just stress a few things. Bamsey, I know originally when the program came out with the needle exchange, it was supposed to be a needle exchange. I know a few times you've mentioned that for many reasons, you know, and I understand, you know, that it doesn't have to be an exchange, but if there's a way that we can maybe try to push a little, try to help, let them help us so we can help them. Does that make sense? If we can just stress a little bit more of the exchange, maybe that'll keep some of the needles off our streets. Pastor Roberto, I have been going to your meetings. I used to go to your meetings. Well, 8 years ago, you wanted a day space to bring the homeless during the day somewhere, so I was very happy to hear that Father Bill's this is in the works. I don't think one is enough. We may need more, so hopefully maybe we can continue to maybe find another space to be able to help as well. I appreciate all your work. I know we all do, but we just have to kind of do better. I know the downtown businesses are hurting. We spoke about Elvira's, the mattress maker, Brockton Bear Works. Last time I saw them, they're frustrated. So I hate to see that, and I know my colleagues do as well. I mean, we just want to be able to make sure that we're doing everything we can because we have to take care of our own, and that's how I see it. So whatever we can do on our end, please let us know. You know, I know that Allison spoke about trash barrels. I have an ordinance about businesses having to have trash barrels at their business, but it's not being enforced, obviously, if there's only 2 down along Main Street. So I will follow up with that. As far as the bathroom, you know, situation, I hope that works. I know that that's a big issue as well because we worry about overdoses in bathrooms. So I think coming together, we can hopefully make it a little bit better. I don't think we'll be able to get rid of the problem, but this isn't just downtown, it's all of Brockton. Please just, you know, we need your help everywhere. So thank you again, and with that, I would recommend this favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? Thank you. It passes. Thank you to all of you. I'm going to have you back in a few months, and maybe we'll have some good news, some positive news. You're doing God's work, and we're so grateful. And I know you're frustrated. We are frustrated. Our constituents are frustrated. You know, they say how a society treats the least among them is the measure of the society. And I think about that often. This is so unpleasant and yet so necessary. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks, Jasmine.
That's it.
Yes.
Item 14, resolve, whereas there are continuing efforts to improve the business development opportunities in the city, and whereas in many areas, including the downtown district, the issues of safety and security and challenges presented by homeless persons are present. Now therefore be it resolved, Legislative Counsel Shannon Resnick, City Solicitor Megan Bridges, our designee, Director of Social Services Jasmine Bradshaw, and Police Chief Brenda Perez be invited to a meeting of the council to address ongoing programs and services related to these issues, as well as federal court decisions affecting the city's efforts.
Councilors, this evening, Legislative Counsel Resnick and City Solicitor Bridges are unfortunately unable to be with us.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
as the author of this, unless there is something new that Lieutenant Schleiman or the chief may offer, I believe we have really discussed this issue in detail on the prior agenda item. So I'm all set if the other councilors are all set.
What I would suggest, Lieutenant Schleiman and Chief Perez have so kindly waited this one out, and so I invite them to the podium to see what they would like to add.
Absolutely, if they have something,
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
She has a whole binder full.
She's ready.
I don't know if we gave her enough time.
Good evening, councilors.
Good evening.
I have nothing new from 2 weeks ago. I was going to just review what I already said about 2 weeks ago of some of the things that we're doing and we continue to do. So if anybody has any question for Lieutenant Schleiman or I, or Jasmine, we're here for it.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded to recommend this favorably. All in favor? It carries. And thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any announcements or anything? No announcements, okay? Then, councilors, you?
You okay? You okay? Yeah. I just wanted to...
Giustino.
Just a reminder about the Accounts Subcommittee Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.